So, friends, welcome to Conversations on the Bench, World Homeless Day, and we're here in Spokane, Washington. My first guest, all the way, you're in Seattle right now?
No, I work at Discovery Institute in Seattle, but I'm from San Antonio, Texas.
Right, okay. And I have a guru on homelessness, Dr. Robert Marbar. I said it wrong.
That's fine.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to having you share. Why don't you tell our guests a little bit of your history working with homeless and how you got involved, because you've done an intense study in our city on homelessness. But give a little background, where you're from, what you've been involved in, because this is an issue that you're educated and put a lot of time into.
So I've been working on homeless for about 4 decades, and I was the founder of Haven for Hope in San Antonio, which is what really jumped me from being a sort of a church volunteer to sort of how do you do this from a management point of view, a systems, a science point of view. And so since helping to found, I was the founding president of Haven for Hope 20 years ago. And since then, I've been involved with consulting and trying to replicate projects that work well around the country. That's how I met you, through the Citygate Network. And I've been involved in one of the, sort of, if you will, the claim to fame or whatever, is I've been involved in more cities with more agencies or more communities than anybody else on the consulting side. And so I do everything from data driven, or I sort of have a mantra that what would Max Lucado do, but also what would Peter Drucker do? What do you do from that faith point of view, but also what do you do from a systems management approach? Because if you don't have that sort of scientific side with it, it won't work. And so that's my background. And I've been early spring this year, I did a very in-depth study here in Spokane. So, I've been coming here a lot. I've been here with you on other things and across the state line at your other programs. But this spring we did I spent hours and hours, probably 200 or 300 hours in the community, on the street here, and candidly, the data was just shockingly bad, to be honest.
Well, most of our listeners may or may not know, but our city right now, we are number 2 in the nation for fentanyl deaths. Obviously, we've got a problem, not only with fentanyl, but with homelessness. But before we dive into that survey, your involvement went beyond just studying and what you've done. You've been engaged with the government too. And part of the past administration, when Trump in the past, you got involved in saying we need data. And talk about that a little bit.
President Trump brought me in as what's called Ronald Reagan created it, the homelessness czar. So I was his homelessness czar. And technically, it's the executive director of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness.
Right.
And I was one of a handful of people that the Biden kept for a little bit. So I stayed for a little bit till he got his team in. And that sort of from there, I started hearing a lot more about Spokane, because Spokane pops the charts in a lot of ways, not just on the fentanyl, but how chronic your homeless condition is here.
Yes. And so Housing First was how we were going to solve that problem. And when we built our first Housing First project, I believe it was 50 beds, we were told this is going to end chronic homelessness. Today, we have 6 of those units within a 2-3 block area. We have more chronic homelessness than we've ever had, and each one of those units holds 50, 55. You're going to talk about, has it worked? And what are we seeing?
So let's just use national, because that way it gets rid of, when you use your total aggregate national number, you start to see a much better idea of it. So it throws out it averages out the outliers. And as a quick reminder, in 2013, the president at that time, President Obama, had said if we moved to this thing called Housing First, it would end all homelessness in 10 years.
Right.
And in 5 years, it would end chronic homeless. 6 years, it would end family homeless and veteran homeless. So he had some specific targets. And as a reminder, before this was put in, homeless actually had been dropping. Under the 8 years of President Bush and the first 4 years of President Obama, it was dropping or flat. It just slightly dropping, and I mean all homeless,
across
total,
the nation.
across the nation, flat or going down.
Yeah.
They put this in, and I was one of probably the first person to talk it against, because I never thought it would work, because it to me wasn't grounded in clinical science. You can't say we're going to reduce something without treating it.
Right.
That's literally what it was.
Yeah.
Harm reduction. It says we're going
Yeah.
to give you free housing, and we're not going to address whatever the root cause was, whether you weren't able to hold a job, you have a behavioral health, mental health illness that we need to work with, or a substance use disorder or addiction. But we weren't going to work with any of that. So to me, it made no sense at all. It just made no technical sense. But that was the promise made. And since then, nationwide, we've now gone 12 years in, and we're now spending 3 times more at the federal government.
But it was
than we
going to
ever
save
have.
us money.
It was promised that it would end homeless
Yeah.
and save money.
Yeah.
And instead, we're now spending 3 times more. And you're in a region that now has street level homelessness doubling every 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
anywhere up in the Northwest. So not only did it not reduce homelessness, homelessness went up, and we're now spending 3 times more money. And I used to be I thought, well, maybe Housing First just wasn't a good idea, wasted money. I've come to the conclusion of late that Housing First, combined with harm reduction, is actually the root cause of the big core of the growth. It's not the only cause of the growth.
Right.
But when you say we're going to stop treating homelessness, to me, homelessness is a clinical issue. We know 3/4 of the people experiencing homeless in the United States at the street level, not the other Department of Education, but at the HUD street level. What we do know is 3/4 are in some form of addiction, some form of substance use. Now, often that's self-medicating, and you're dealing with the untreated mental illness underneath that. But if 3/4 have a substance use, and half of that group says that's the reason why they lost their housing.
Yeah.
I mean, half the group says, I lost my housing, I lost my job, I lost my car, I lost my credit cards, my family, my friends, and everything else that goes with that downward spiral. And I lost it because I had a substance use issue. So how does it make sense to take somebody with a substance issue, put them in an apartment without treatment? And what we now know in the last 30 months, the death rate has doubled in homeless, and almost 100% of that is fatal overdose in a Housing First vouchered room.
Yeah. Now, and that's where I'll get a little energy when this discussion I have with people, when they blow the trumpet and say, the problem is we don't have enough housing. They're not being realistic that the reason they're homeless is they lost their housing. It's not a housing shortage issue. It's an addiction issue. But one of the things our local leaders have said time and time again is all of these Housing First, all the things we're doing in Spokane is helping the people from our area. And you were invited to come in because you've done this in other cities. You've put together a survey, and I have it here in front of me. Let's talk about what we found out with why do we have so many homeless in Spokane? Why are the numbers growing, and are they from here locally? What did your study find out? And then I'd like you to talk about I've got 15 minutes on the bench with everyone. I'm really excited about it. And my clock hasn't moved a minute. So I don't know where we're at.
We have unlimited time.
We have unlimited time. But anyway, I want to talk about what you found out in your study, and then what your suggestions are, Dr. Marbut, what we do moving forward.
So up to now, we've been talking about sort of the macro numbers. And when I came in spring, to me, before we go to the why, you always got to go to the what. And I think there are three big things that we found out in the Spokane report. The very first one is how chronic the population is experiencing homeless. And to me, the chronic number is your overall report card grade for the entire homelessness service system in a community. So that's the police, the fire, the EMS, the hospital, organizations like yours. Even though you may have a fabulous organization, which you do, you have the best organization here in town, but if the rest of the system is doing horrible, the whole number looks bad. So a chronic number over 2 years, which means you've been on the street for over 2 years, is bad. That's a 1 year or less is I don't want to say a good number. No number is good.
Right.
But that would at least showing the system's working.
Working, yes.
You're at 8.7.
0.7. Yeah.
And to give you an idea how that compares to a city that a lot of people know about here, Seattle is 4.2.
Wow.
So you're twice as bad as Seattle. You're twice as chronic. And that's your overall report card grade for your entire system. So your entire system as a whole, even though some individual units are doing great, like you're doing,
yeah,
the whole system is bad. So that's problem one. Why are you so chronic? The next problem is...
You know, I just slow down and to make sure they heard that. Seattle, the average chronic homeless 4 years, we're at 8.7. That's almost 9 years. The average people are, yeah, okay.
I don't know of another city that has as high a chronic numbers. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah.
I just don't know of one.
Okay.
And I'm the former homelessness czar, so I get a lot of data. I don't remember one being that high. There may be somebody out there as an outlier, but you're now the bad outlier on that number. The other thing we found, and we found two other things in the study. The thing that was really shocking is 50.2%, so just slightly over half of your people living on your streets in Spokane started experiencing homelessness somewhere else. They're not just from somewhere else. They became homeless in another community, then moved here.
Got it.
So whether you're from Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, the Midwest, you came here because there was some reason you heard that this is a real good city to be experiencing homeless in.
Right.
So you already became homeless somewhere. So half the problem in this community is started somewhere else. That not just came from somewhere else, started somewhere else and got here. And then the final number is, depending on how you look at it, is about 3/4 of your people are from somewhere else. And I'll go through the number. I want to be accurate here.
Okay.
80.7% were born outside of Spokane. 73.5% went to high school outside of Spokane.
Yeah.
And 63.2% have no family, never had family here.
Yeah.
And when I look at where you're from, I always look at high school, family, birth, did you have a job here? And so you have the most chronic population in the Northwest that I know of, maybe one of the highest, if not the highest, one of the highest in the country. You have over half your people experiencing starting homeless somewhere else, and they're saying, I'm in Seattle. But if I go to Spokane, that's a better place to be homeless.
Yeah.
Not to get off the street, not to get treatment. They hassle me here less.
Yes.
Which now gets to the whys. One of the things that...
Can I stop a minute and say, our city officials have constantly said they're all here locally, and they base that on the point in time count. And in the point in time count, they simply approach a person, and the question is, are you from here? And what are they going to say? Your survey goes deeper. You ask questions like, where did you go to high school? Where were you born? Where did homelessness start?
So they're using what's called point in time, which is a HUD, and their definition is the night before last, I'm talking to you, the night before last, or the night before you became homeless, where were you? And so I was at the Greyhound station coming in, so that's where I'm from.
And
so
Yeah.
That is not a true number. A true number is high school.
Yeah.
Birth. Do you have a utility bill here from 2 years ago? Do you have a housing rental, a mortgage agreement?
Yeah.
That is, if you go to a backyard pool party with your kiddos and somebody says, where are you from? You know, they don't say, where were you spending last night?
Right.
They're saying, where'd you go to high school?
Yeah.
Where were you born?
Yeah.
Where do you work? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
So your problem is somewhere between half and 75% imported.
Yeah.
By choice.
By choice. And we're going to come full circle. You've identified that there's something about Spokane that makes it comfortable to come here, live on the streets, all the things that are provided. And that creates a culture and environment that causes people to come here. So let's move to solutions.
Let's move to some of the why.
Okay, the why.
And then before we go to the solution.
Okay.
When I was doing the study, I spent probably 300 or 400 hours on the street, and people working on the project team also spent a couple hundred each out there with it. And what struck me when I went into your sort of zone, that sort of 4 mile by 1 mile where not everybody is from, but most.
Second division.
Yeah, where most of your people are experiencing homeless on the street. One of the things that struck me, if all the hours I spent there, I saw EMS there, I saw fire trucks there. I never once saw a police cruiser stop. I saw 2 roll by, but never stop working an issue. Any other place I've been within an hour or two, I'll see a police officer or cruiser out of the car working the issue there. Also interconnected with that was how sort of permissive you were with fentanyl. Fentanyl is just openly had here.
Yeah.
One of the worst places I've ever seen. Just fentanyl is just openly used here. No problem. Not you, but the royal you of Spokane have normalized fentanyl use.
So we, earlier this morning, had groups go out on the street for an hour and a half and interact with homeless people. One of the individuals that was out there this morning said what was different. They couldn't believe the open drug and what they saw. It's prevalent in our city. It's not only what you witnessed, you can go downtown today and see it.
And that is not normal compared to the rest of the country, which is why you're twice as bad as Seattle on chronic. You have the worst report card grade that I know of in America there. Now, a couple other things to hit. You've stopped funding for treatment, not you, but the community has, and you've stopped requiring treatment. Pre-2013, when homeless was being reduced, homeless treatment, back then it was called wraparound services or treatment for untreated mental illness, substance abuse. So when you stop funding it and you stop having requirements for it, what you're saying is you have a deep behavioral mental health issue or a substance use issue or a job training, job skill issue, and we're not going to work on that.
Right.
What we're going to do is increase the welfare rolls by giving you a taxpayer subsidized voucher and put you in. That's also why the death rate is doubling, because we're putting you into an apartment isolated without treatment and recovery. The last thing that is really noticeable here, when you go around, and again, exempting you, when you go around to talk to other agencies and the firefighters and the EMS that are on the street, they all talk about one solution. And that's all they have is one choice. That is the equivalent of going to an emergency room. And if you're having a heart attack, which I hope you don't, or the photographer is having a stroke.
Jonathan's doing great.
Or having a stroke. Or I have viral pneumonia, or Julie has sort of another form of pneumonia that's not viral in nature, and we all give you an antibiotic. And so we're treating a viral pneumonia as straight pneumonia or a heart attack or a stroke, all with an antibiotic. Nobody in an emergency room would ever do that. You break out, you figure out what the issues are, and you treat people. A heart attack's treated different than a stroke, than viral pneumonia, than bacterial pneumonia. They're different. But in this community, everybody treats one thing once. So what do we do with all that? You know, that's where, solutions. If there are 2 or 3 things I do just instantly, like One is you have to put about 1/3 of your overall budget into treatment and recovery and emergency services. Right now, other than you, there's no other program I saw in this community working specifically in the homelessness space that treats people at the root cause level. You have to have at least 1/3 of your money dealing with that emergency root cause. The next is you got to stop this permissive environment of drug use. Here, drug use is normalized.
Yeah.
Just normalized.
Yeah.
You can never normalize fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is the deadliest drug ever invented on planet Earth, and I've never been to a community that normalizes it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've met in the Spokane area says, you know what, the real problem is we need to figure out how to make fentanyl safe.
Yeah.
You can't make
it
fentanyl safe. You just
Yeah.
can't do it. Next thing, and there are two more things that need to be done. You need to have a different track for your in-town and your out-of-town. At SAMHSA, even under the Biden administration, SAMHSA, sort of the federal mental health authority of the government, said your best place to have recovery is where home is, where your environment is, where your family. And where you understand the community.
Yeah.
And then some people say, well, they have a broken family and go there.
Yeah.
That's part of the recovery,
Yeah.
is rebuilding that. And so your best chance for long-term recovery is wherever home is. And I'm exempting domestic violence. Domestic violence, not.
Right.
If it's a domestic violence victim, survivor, going home might be deadly and dangerous. I'm taking, and that's
That
about
out.
7, 8, 10%.
Yeah.
So taking that off the table. Everybody else, that 50% that start experiencing homeless somewhere else, that wherever home is, that's your best chance of recovery, not here. And last, your police have to be involved with this issue. They have to be part of, the national best practice is these multidiscipline teams where you take a police officer, a social worker, and now the sort of version 3 of this is adding a public health, like an EMT and EMS officer. So you bring out an EMT, a social worker, and a police officer. Those three together, those hybrid teams are really working well and are engaging. I mean, in most communities in America, and I mean, Republican and Democrat cities alike, are having these multidiscipline teams go in, and they're not tolerating open drug use.
Right.
Just full stop.
Right.
I mean, Austin, Texas, who you would think they have changed because it didn't work.
Yeah.
San Francisco, it didn't work.
Yeah.
You all are doing a path that didn't work. And I mean the Spokane community, not you. I want to separate Spokane from your organization because you're doing it right.
Yeah.
The rest of your community is not doing it right.
Well, in conversations today on the bench, I'm going to have one of the officers that's responsible for the downtown area sitting right where you're sitting. And lawlessness is a big part of this. And I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us today, because I really feel like those that are listening, those that will turn this on and watch it later, what you've shared is critical information for people to know and to understand what's happening in our city. I'm glad you're in town. You were able to join us on Homeless Day and talk about it. So, Dr. Marbut, thank you so much.
And always thank you for letting me come visit you here.
Yeah.
I've been coming for years.
Yeah.
And, both here and your other operations.
You're back in town on the 28th at the Fox Theater for a showing on fentanyl and to address that issue.
With Fentanyl Death Incorporated and actor Billy Baldwin, who is on the left side, and he's visited your program.
Right.
And some people should probably start waking up when somebody as left as Billy Baldwin and as right as Robert Marbut start to say we got to focus on treatment and recovery, and you can't have this permissive use of fentanyl out there or meth or any of the others. People should start to think, what happens when these two guys who are this far apart are saying on this issue we got to work together, and what you're doing is not working.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we need to stop the left and the right and come together and say, we're going to get this done
Common
in our
sense
city.
middle will get it
We
done.
need to turn our city around. Hey, I've got a gift for, bring it up here, World Homeless Day. We just want to leave you a little thank you for stopping in on the bench.
Oh, that's great.
And you bet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Always
Appreciate
good to
it.
see you. And he was here today, folks. We've been blessed. Our first guest. How great is that? So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Chris.
All right.
Chris is here with me. He's in town today. He's with Washington Policy Center.
Yes, sir.
And
Thanks for
tell
having
him what
me.
your role is with Washington Policy Center.
So I'm the Eastern Washington Director at WPC, which my job is to do anything and everything from events to meetings to outreach like this, east of the Cascades,
Yeah.
also known as God's country in the best part of Washington State.
Well, I agree with that. You got to get over to Idaho, and it even gets better in terms of the Northwest, but we won't go there right now. You're in Washington, and Washington Policy Center, tell us a little bit about what you do. People may not be familiar, but I love tuning into your articles that you write, the research that you do, and tonight you've got a big special event, a dinner, and that's why we just heard from Dr. Bart, I always say his name wrong.
Marbut. Yeah, I
Marbut.
get it.
I always want to say, but he's in town. Robert's what I remember. That's what I call him.
I think he's good
So
with Robert.
anyway, he's speaking tonight, but tell us what you do research on and what you do.
So Washington Policy Center is a nonpartisan, nonprofit, free market think tank. And our whole goal is to improve the lives of Washingtonians through free market research. We believe in the power of the free market. We believe that less government, less regulation is crucial to Washington's success and for the people that live and work here. Whether it's anything from business to families to our nonprofits, such as Union Gospel Mission and more. The more the government gets out of the way, the greater it is that people can thrive in and of themselves. So that's what we focus on, and this has been kind of an interesting 2 years. We've really started to work a lot more on homelessness and talking about what are the free market approaches, because obviously, as you discussed with Robert previous to me, the government approach is not working.
Right.
And it's making things drastically more difficult and worse. So.
And they're pouring more and more money into it. You'd think at some point you realize it isn't working.
Exactly.
And I'll go back and remind our listeners too, as you're saying, less government, more. One of the things I appreciate about our board is we establish a policy from the get-go. We will not receive any government funds. It's given us the freedom to add accountability to helping the homeless, to be able to address spiritual issues, every area of a person's life. And so the freedom that you have. And so what are you seeing in Washington with the policies? More and more control? What's happening?
It's a lot more control. I think for your folks here in Spokane, there has been a push by the citizens through Prop 1 and other measures to really try to solve this problem. And what they've found is that their own government seems to be, the most, I guess, the biggest roadblock. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. To fixing those problems. And so what we've noticed on the statewide level is that there's been pushes to limit what cities can do. So when you see cities that are working right now, Burien is a great example on the west side, where they're actually taking approach of getting people into treatment, getting people off the streets, not allowing the camping, not allowing the drugs and the proliferation of those things. You're seeing success, and the responses from Olympia has been to crack down on that. Because they don't want that. And so whether it's on homelessness or government accountability, healthcare, stuff like that, all we're looking for is what are policies that are working. And if it's working, we're gonna encourage it, and if it's not, we're gonna offer a different solution, which is a lot of what you referred to at WashingtonPolicy.org. Look at that plug. And in our magazine and our publishes and our videos, that's what we talk about. And it's really about a state that we all love. Obviously, this is our home. I've got 5 kids that I'm hoping one day make Washington State their home as well when they grow up, so I can have my grandkids around. But there's some fear that they may not be. I mean, we're seeing businesses and families leave this state at an incredible pace.
So one of your goals is to educate the public as to what's happening in Washington, D.C. with different bills and what have you. And I remember this fall, I testified at one of them that you're right. Chris, I don't know how many people know this, but they were getting ready to pass legislation that would have literally stopped us from cities being able to end homelessness and enforce.
Yep.
I mean, and once that happens statewide, they've just now tied the hands of every city and what they can do. And that came close to moving forward. But thank God it got stopped. So there's still freedom for local city officials, our city council, our mayor, for them to have policies that we can end sleeping on our street. We can end open use of drugs. So while we have this window, because I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of the state, I hope people tune into what you do to educate. And I would say it's not only homelessness, you're addressing a lot of issues that affect businesses and the economy.
Yeah.
And so I love and it's based on, just as Dr. Marbut said, a lot of it's based on research, just not right or left issue. It is based on solid research. So, and that's what you do. How many people do research for you?
So we've got about 8 research directors that are working in a variety of areas. And I'll tell you, you know how I know we're nonpartisan? Because I've had Republicans and Democrats complain about what we're doing.
Good.
So it's just like with my kids. If they're all complaining that the other is the favorite, it means I'm doing something right?
Yeah.
So we've really focused on what is the right thing, not what is the right or left political thing. And that's given us the freedom to be able to speak truth to power, back to homelessness and obviously what you're doing. You and I have gotten to know each other over the last 2 years now. It's not a traditional free market issue, right? It's not something WPC doesn't really do. We don't really do social issues. That's not our area. But with what is happening with homelessness in our state, and for me in Eastern Washington, Spokane, Yakima, and other cities specifically, is that it is having such an impact on business and markets. For your viewers or listeners who may not have realized, like there was a report out recently about how the commercial real estate in downtown Spokane is cratering.
Yeah.
Because people don't feel safe. They don't want to move their businesses down there.
Well, I'm doing conversations on the bench, Chris, and I've got some business people that are going to be sitting right where you're sitting talking about that because, I think our listeners and people in Spokane need to hear these policies that we've allowed in our city, how has it impacted them? And so we're going to do that next. I believe we've got Jake up next, and he's a businessman here and been in Spokane a long time. I want him to share that. But again, folks, tell them where they can go, find the resources, and again, tell them too, I get these YouTubes all the time, and I listen to them to get updates, how they can go and begin to get educated about what's happening in our state.
Yeah, so WashingtonPolicy.org is our main website, and from there we've got all of our research. It's all free and public. We would love your support and donations, obviously, but we want to make sure that information's out there, and there's no barriers, there's no firewalls. So we're on YouTube. You can find those links there. We do, again, traditional blogs. We do white papers. We do what our Policy Center on the Go, which is what you're referring to. That happens every other week where we bring in speakers. We brought in Dr. Marbut and others to talk about what's going on. And then during session, we're doing that even on an even grander scale, more frequency because of just, there's only so many days there and there's a lot going on. So it's really a great site to bookmark, to become involved in. We're having a dinner tonight here in Spokane. It's our annual policy dinner. So
I'll see you there.
You're going to be there. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome. Jake, I want you to just tell them your business, where you're located in Spokane.
Yep, my business is Jones Double Reed Products, and we're located on the corner of Spokane and Pacific Street. And
you have owned that business and been there how long?
So I've been there since December of 2013.
Okay.
The business has been there since 92.
92.
But it's been around since 63.
So it's interesting that you had mentioned 2013 because as we were talking about earlier, that's when housing first started.
So I got to see the beginning of it.
Yeah, and that was how many blocks from your business?
1 block.
1 block.
So and the corner of Spokane and 2nd Avenue.
Yeah, and since then, you have had 6 of those units go up right around you within a 2-block area or 3-block area.
Yep.
And they each hold 50, 55 individuals. Now, as a businessman and an owner, we talked earlier about housing first. How has this homeless issue, because we were going to solve chronic homeless, since 2013, you've been an eyewitness to what's happened there in your neighborhood.
Yep.
What has happened?
I literally came in on the ground level. So I came in before that first haven was built. And when I first got there, my employees would walk on the brakes. A lot of ladies work for me. It's a lot of hand work, but it's light hand work. So I have a lot of elderly women that work for me, and they used to walk on the brakes and try to get some exercise and just stay fit. And they don't do that anymore. They walk 2 by 2 to their car most of the time to make sure that they're safe. So we own the house next door to us, and we use it for storage. That house has been broken into 7 times.
Wow.
And our business actually has been
going
broken
back,
into.
let me use 7 times within what period is that in
That
the
was
last?
the first 6 years that I was there.
Okay.
And then I put up a fence with razor wire on top, and I put an outward opening door on the front door, because one time they kicked the door in and stayed the weekend inside the house.
Okay.
And broke out a number of windows in the backside where you couldn't really see them. I put cameras up, lights up, put a key fob lock on the front door, because we used to have people come in and just expect to be able to use the bathroom, or just be really curious about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And
Let's stop. I just want to stop there a minute. I think a lot of businesses in town still have the freedom, depending on where they're located. Front doors wide open. You serve the customer. Come on in. You've had to literally lock your doors.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So when I show up, that's not too welcoming.
No,
it's not.
And we're not a retail exactly. We're mostly manufacturing, but we do have. I've got one employee who teaches oboe students, and she tried to do it there for a little while, and it was just too scary.
Yeah.
And the parents said, we're not doing this anymore, and so she had to rent space somewhere else, now up on the South Hill, in order to do that. So she can't do what she wanted to do without extra cost.
Right.
And it was one of the benefits I wanted to offer, because she was my employee, and I like to draw the potential future employees in, because they're people who play the instrument.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure.
Right. So 2013, here we are in 2026.
Yep.
How else has this impacted you as a businessman? And I know that I've been at different events, and you show up, you care, you speak up to our city council members. How are you feeling as a businessman? Are you feeling heard? What do you see happening? Or how do you feel?
Well, I don't like cleaning up human feces, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've had way more than my fill of that.
Yeah.
Actually, this morning I came in, and the garage that's next to my building that is attached to that house, there was such a mess of used fentanyl foils. I've never seen that much, and I got to be honest with you, I would have thought I would have found a dead body there with all that foil. There was so much.
Yeah.
So I'm cleaning up that all the time. I've complained enough about it that my business partners want us to move. I don't know that we can ever sell our building at this point, but they want me to start looking. So we've been looking for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so centrally located for the colleges. I get a lot of college students that work for me, for a lot of the people who have skills that they've built over time. It won't be easy to move, and it's really, really hard to stay. So I'm between a rock and a hard place for sure.
Well, I just, I can't envision. Every business owner dreams of the opportunity that one day they would own property and not have that expense added to their business. Right. And then, like you're saying, well, just move. But then what's the resale? Who else is going to move into that area and say, I'm going to put my business here? He's leaving.
But there's so much more than just the building.
Yeah.
I've got employees that I love that may or may not be able to go with me.
Yeah.
They would have to sell a lot of times to get there. I've got a skill set that I've been developing with a lot of these people over years of time. So I've got all that, and it's CNC equipment. So it's not stuff that just moves well.
Right.
And for me, we've got the best friend group we've ever had. We've lived in 4 states. We've got the best. I love my kids' school. I coach basketball there. My wife teaches there.
Yeah.
I've got an employee base that I love. We've got a church that we love. And I've got a job that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I'm almost 50.
Yeah.
Moving a bunch of equipment or my house doesn't sound like a very fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And yet nobody's saying, why does this guy feel like he has to leave?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's going on in the city is it's making it that much worse. So I've got all this stuff that I love in this community, and I love this area.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to go. My employees aren't safe there. They're frustrated.
Yeah.
My wife is not really happy with me coming down to an area where I'm propositioned all the time. I kick people off the back, doing drugs all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I never thought I'd have to look at my security cameras around my building before I went to bed every night.
Yeah.
And call the police often.
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Never once occurred to me in my life. So.
Well, one of the questions I have for you as we kind of wrap this up, and I can't help but think about it, it's probably why I go down to city council. I've shared on many occasions. If I were to put myself in your shoes, the investment you've made, what you deal with day in and out, cleaning up human feces, the drug addiction, people breaking in, and then you're left with the expenses. You start claiming those as insurance. You and I both know what's going to happen to your insurance. Pretty soon they're not even going to insure you.
Right.
And now your property, what's it worth? What's been on my heart and why I'm so aggressively saying we need to do something. We need to protect businesses. We need to clean up our city, because here is also something that I'm concerned about. When you're dealing with this day in and day out, people have a tendency to lump all homeless people in a bucket. And I can't imagine you having how that affects your compassion toward helping the ones, as I look right out here and see them on our campus. You begin to see them all the same.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
It's hard not to when they do some of the same things that you have to clean up afterwards, for sure.
Yeah.
But I recognize there are differences. There's differences in every human experience, right?
Yes.
And I think you guys do a really good job of addressing that at UGM. And can I share something about my background? So I've done new employee training for a large part of my career. I ran a business that had hundreds of employees. We were bringing in 16 employees at a time for a while. And one of the things that I started to really get frustrated with was people who would fail out of the system faster than I would have expected. But I started to ask a question, because mostly it was young men, inner city young men, okay? Mm-hmm. Didn't have a dad figure for most of their life.
Right.
No real strong male influence in their life. And I started asking them, hey, can you tell me about a time when you were starting to go down the wrong way, when you knew the right way was there, and some guy grabbed you by the collar and threw you back on the right path.
Right.
And everyone that I would have described as a successful person, and so loosely defined, someone who shows up to work on time, reliable transportation, pretty stable life, every one of those could point to a time when a man grabbed a hold of him at the right time and held him accountable.
Right.
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 And I started to realize that everyone that failed out of my system, didn't have that.
Right.
And either I could be that final level of accountability, and some of them came in, or they just flunked out because they didn't want that kind of accountability.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to what's going on in Spokane, because we've taken that last level of accountability, the very last. So they've got nobody else holding these people accountable for, no, you can't live life that way. It's not good for you to live life that way. we've taken the police officer's ability to enforce anything, or the court's ability to do something about, giving some kind of accountability to the people that will inevitably put most of them on the right path.
Right.
It's that grab
Right.
by the collar or the smack upside the back of the head that says, no, this is not okay. You can't live life this way. When you undermine that ability, you don't get anything out of them, and it's not good for them.
Yeah.
As well as it's not good for the community.
Yeah.
To have people who they don't have the background that puts them in a position to be successful, and then we take out the accountability structure that's going to allow them to have a second chance.
Right.
And I love what UGM does, because you guys give them some accountability,
Right.
but you also give them the community. And I don't know if you ever study Andrew Huberman, but he's a neuroscientist that defined addiction in the best way that I've ever heard. He defined it as the progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure, which is really helpful if you think about it. Because if this drug is the only thing that gives me pleasure,
Yeah.
then I'll lie, cheat, steal, kill, destroy,
Right.
whatever to get
Get
that thing.
Yeah.
But if my pleasure center's spread out, which is what you do, you give them a community,
Yeah.
you give them some accountability, you show them who the Lord is,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
teach them a skill which gets them all sorts of different things that spread out the pleasure center, so they don't just have to go to that one thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not present at the other places. We give them a home that doesn't spread out the pleasure center. That just gives them a way to do this and do the drugs in a place that's comfortable, so they
Right.
can keep doing the thing that hurts them.
Yeah.
And so there's no compassion, there's no love, there's no help in a situation that doesn't provide accountability for,
Yeah.
for people who need it so desperately.
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate what you guys
You're
do.
saying it so well. What does real love look like? Real love is accountability. We raise our kids. What would it look like with no accountability, no discipline?
Right.
We know the paths they would choose so often. But, I just want to say that I appreciate you as a businessman. I hope that our city, we can turn the corner. I would love nothing more than your business to thrive. I would love nothing more than all around you, your employees could go for a walk.
Yeah.
And I know that in our city there's a lot of businesses that they can do that, but I wish they would understand that in our downtown that's changing. And I wish more people would have a heart to say, we want to help the downtown area. We want to get it back to what it was, because I believe we have one of the most beautiful downtowns.
is.
And so again, thanks for coming and sharing your heart. And folks, I hope we'll just today stop and realize how you're not the only businessman in that area that this has happened to. And
I know a couple others that,
Yeah.
that are already have their businesses on the market.
market. Yeah. So again, thanks for coming. Yeah.
Phil,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
You bet. I'm really excited about this because throughout this conversations on the bench, I want to spend some time talking to some people that have been there on the street, homeless. So let's go back and talk about your story. Where did it all begin? Where were you born?
I was born here, Spokane.
Right here in Spokane.
Yeah, I was Spokane Valley native. U-High was the school I was supposed to graduate.
The Titans.
Titans.
Yeah.
U-High Titans, University Elementary, Bowders Middle School. Like, I grew up here, but I also was back and forth in Colorado. Did not necessarily have the greatest upbringing. A child of an addiction, child of abandonment. So it's taken its toll on me through the years. So I can definitely say that when it comes to long-term homelessness, I definitely fall in that category. If I count out the years altogether, you would look at it probably from the age of 16 up until now, with a lapse in between when I got married. So there's a 6-year lapse where I actually had everything put together, my life was put together, and then afterwards it kind of all fell apart. I can definitely say that from when I was younger and homeless to when I became homeless now, it was a lot easier back then. It
Yeah.
was
Easier in what way?
as in you weren't at risk so much as you are now. Like,
Okay.
I was homeless in Seattle when I first became homeless. Originally started here, then moved over to Seattle, and I just immediately got into a mission. Immediately got a job working at Columbia Tower Club, which was a fine dining restaurant. I've got 13 years of culinary experience, and that's kind of been while traveling the world without a home. Like, it's so, but then the difference was when I got married, when my life was kind of put together, when I moved back to Spokane so that way my family could be with my daughter, the world kind of changed around me without realizing. So fentanyl was not a thing. I think my first recognition that it was when my ex-wife's friend died because she had heroin that was mixed with fentanyl, or meth that was mixed with fentanyl, and she just died the next day. And that was my first introduction to it. What I didn't know was that when I became homeless again, which was 2023, is when I finally became homeless again, how bad it's actually gotten. When I went back to Seattle thinking that I've done it before, I can rebuild myself in Seattle, I've done it once. No. The homelessness was terrible over there. Like, and it was kind of an ignored problem, so much as they just don't want to recognize it. They just stay away from those areas. They just ignore it. And then coming here, UGM saved my life.
So you walked through our doors when?
2024 of March, early February, or end of February, early March.
So in Spokane, we're not the only shelter.
No.
Cameron, what was it that brought you to our shelter?
You're clean.
Clean.
That's the biggest thing. I've been sober since I was 19 years old when I first accepted Christ. That drugs have never really been my issue. My issue was my upbringing and everything else that ended up happening that kind of put life's weight against me. So I didn't, even when I got divorced, I didn't relapse. Like, there was no drugs, there was no alcohol, there was nothing. I don't even smoke marijuana. It's not something that I did. But the difference is when I walked through your doors and the UA was readied and it was needed, the breathalyzers were ready and it was needed, you could tell that this place was designed to help people get out of homelessness. They're not wanting you to stay. They're not wanting you to live in that. They want you to actually just start moving forward. They want you to start building confidence again in your job skills and your ability to just kind of move. And just also, they want you to grow closer to the Lord. It's also the only place I've been to where, like, you're constantly seeing just Christ in everything that you're doing. You're seeing the blessings of God come full force, and you're also seeing people's lives get changed who didn't even think it was possible.
And for you come in that situation, and it's like you said, we're dealing not only with the physical, the mental, the emotional, but the spiritual. And you've moved all the way from coming through the doors homeless to now that you've been working in our kitchen, helping with the skills that you had. And you got a little purpose for your life and
I got
direction.
a lot of purpose for my life. When I first came through those doors, not even a month before that, I was in the hospital with hypothermia. I was about to die in Sandpoint because I was just ready to go. Like, divorce hits hard. Especially when you don't see your daughter. Especially when life definitely weighs heavy on you. You have a choice. And God decided he had a different plan for me. And when I walked through those doors, now I have purpose. Now I have a light in my eyes. Now I have kind of a pep in my step. Now my purpose isn't so much cooking food. It's the men who are here who are wanting to give up their addictions. They're my purpose. The men who are wanting to escape homelessness, because I understand how much of a battle it is. I understand how bad it is out on the streets. I walk to and from work every single day. I see what happens underneath the bridge when people congregate, when they're all smoking fentanyl, and then I also see what happens to businesses when they're, breaking down their doors, they're kicking them in and they're breaking it in. And these are businesses that have been supporting the community for decades. Like, I fully understand how hard it is to be homeless right now. I also understand that there are places that are willing to change. There are places that are willing to fight for you and give you a new life. You just got to be ready to take that next step. You've got to be ready to give it all.
Well, Cameron, I want to say this. I listen to your story and I hear about when you were in Sandpoint that moment when, hey, I'll take my life. I'm glad you didn't, because look what God had in store for you. Look at how you're impacting other people and how you overcame what the enemy wants to see in all of our lives, death and destruction. Right. And now you're living, walking proof and blessing others. So thank you for coming and sharing today. And, and I'm just glad you walked through our doors and you have allowed God to change your life.
I'm definitely glad I walked through your doors.
Yeah.
It's definitely saved my life.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining me on the bench. And I know Cameron already has a cat. He was out this morning walking the streets.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Christine, sit down. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've got a real interest in homelessness. I've seen you at several meetings, and you've got a lot going on. Tell us what's brought your level of interest up, and share with the people a little bit about yourself and what's happened, how you've gotten involved.
So I started SOS, which is Save Our Spokane, and I was a social worker. And it breaks my heart to see what is happening, and it's needless.
Well, you started SOS, Save Spokane. What was it that you began to see that you go, we got to start Save Spokane? And when did you start it?
So 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Actually, it started as Save West Hills.
Save West Hills.
And what happened is, in the West Hills, Catholic Charity came in and bought a whole lot of property. They also bought a hotel, the Quality Inn, and at that time you had 3 developers who wanted to bring the Spokane House back, who wanted to restore it.
Yeah. And by the way, I have memories going back. The first, believe it or not, the first Billy Graham crusade, he stayed at Spokane House. It was the premier hotel in Spokane years and years ago. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and so here you got involved because that whole neighborhood was changing. Yeah.
Yes, and it was actually ready to go through. You had developers, you had retail going in, and everybody left.
Yeah. So let's go back historically. Save Spokane and Catholic Charities purchased that land, and that was about the time we had just finished with Camp Hope. Hope. I often called it something else, and it just about slipped out. But and so that was the drive to take those people that had been out in Camp Hope, and all of a sudden we're going to move them all to the West Hills, which. And house how many? I don't remember what it was.
The number varied, I think around 80.
Okay.
100?
Yeah.
100.
Okay. And so that's when you started SOS Save West Plains. And I even hear today that there's more stuff happening, continuing to happen in the West Plains, let alone when we think of Save Spokane.
West Hills. And it's really tragic.
Yeah.
Really tragic. Lisa Sadler is a director of Ascenda, and it's a wonderful, amazing program. She's been doing this for 20 plus years, and it's a family. It's a family of sober living individuals. One child is now 12. He's been there since he was an infant.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful group of people. Everybody works. In fact, several people work for the city of Spokane. And Lisa was essentially swindled out of her property by Waters Meat, and they are now putting a tiny home, pallet village, on her property. And we just learned yesterday, Kat and Julie Garcia will be the operators.
Those are, just for our listeners, those are the ones. Julie was involved in Camp Hope and that whole issue that we had in our city. Yeah. So what kind of momentum has happened out of SOS, and what are you hearing from people, and what's happening with Save Our City?
So I think a big part of it is just helping people understand why this is happening. And why this is happening is our mayor and 5 council members, and they continually give money to Catholic Charities, Waters Meat, Julie Garcia, who are essentially destroying the city, and they perpetuate addiction and homelessness, and nobody gets better. And I always say, ask any addict if they'd rather go back to their old life. And with fentanyl, it's really a crisis because you don't have, they say 18 months is often the lifespan of someone, a heavy fentanyl user. And if they don't die, brain damage occurs. There's so many people with brain damage. Narcan takes 3 to 4 minutes to work. And so in that time, brain damage is occurring. It's now taking, you've probably heard, 3 to 4 Narcans
because
to revive.
of the severity. And as most of our people we've talked about, our city, when you say save Spokane, it's hard for me to comprehend, living here my whole life, being gone a few years, but that we're number 2 in the nation with fentanyl deaths. We have a problem. And you've put a lot of time and effort, and I think education is a big part of helping change what's taken place. And as you mentioned too, the power rests with our city council.
Yes.
They have been empowered ever since the Supreme Court had the ruling to change everything, that now local cities can have policies that enforce the issues of drug use, sleeping on the streets, and what have you, and the policies that we know our voters have said we want. So it's a matter of really educating people what is happening, and I appreciate the efforts you've put into it and what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
So don't stop.
No.
Keep educating and save the West Lanes.
And so real quick, there's something. And Officer Brunel came to a neighborhood council meeting, and he showed us the maps, the crime maps. Catholic Charities is the hot spots. All the crime is occurring at Catholic Charities properties. And then he showed us UGM maps, and there is no crime. It's non-existent.
Well, as you know, one of our policies is to love people by holding them accountable, believing that if people want help, they need to come into a safe environment. An addict cannot get help when he's around other addicts. And so we're committed to loving people through accountability. And, just the other day, I forget who I was talking to. We were walking across the campus. I said, look around. Our number 1 goal is to be a good neighbor. And if you're a good neighbor, you don't allow crime, you don't allow addiction just to exist around and look the other way. You deal with it. And again, because we receive no government funds, our hands aren't tied. We have the freedom to love and help people in a way that it shows dignity. And so, again, that's who we are and that's what we do. And I would hope that we, again, as other individuals like you, get engaged, get involved, and educate. As a city, people start putting pressure on city council on the decisions they're making.
That's true. And they've tried to normalize it. And this is not normal. At all. And you go other places and you realize how bad it is here. And it doesn't have to be this way.
Right. Well, thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, so real quick, I want to say, go on a tour of UGM because we see, it's just so disheartening what you see, and it's so inspiring.
Well,
and it's incredible when you see what's inside that building.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the bench.
Thank you very much for having me.
To talk about homelessness in our city and what you're seeing. You're the captain of the downtown precinct.
Yes.
And so you are keenly aware of what it looks like, what you're experiencing, and where do we begin? I mean, talk to me about it.
It's been going on for a long time, and we've been dealing with it in Spokane. So where do you begin? The biggest thing is as we're out there policing and taking calls and stuff, we're interacting with people that are experiencing homelessness every day, and it's from different calls where we're specifically dealing with them to other calls where they're just part of the mix, or they happen to be innocent bystanders in the whole thing. So those interactions happen multiple times a day.
Yeah, and would you say in the calls that you have and what you're having to deal with, what percent of it's around drug usage, homelessness, that? What, is that, what percent?
It's hard to say an exact percentage, but it's probably the vast majority. You're probably 80%, 90% or higher of some kind of substance abuse and a bunch of co-occurring things that are happening with these individuals where you have some mental illness, but you also have them self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. That combination then leads a lot of them to homelessness and to the streets because their life is structured as such that they don't have a steady income, they don't have a place to stay, they've burned a lot of their bridges, and they find themselves on the street.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people, I've often said, are we dealing with homelessness? And in many cases, it just appears that we're dealing with lawlessness because as a citizen, I can't do the things that they do. If I do them, I get a ticket, I go to court, I pay the fine, you know what I mean? I don't go on life and if I don't show up, they just say, well, that's great, Mr. Altmaier, have a nice day. No, they come after me. And it just seems like, we've got the court system that says justice is for all. Well, is justice the same for all? And I wrestle so much with what I see as homelessness. A lot of it is lawlessness. And, talk to me about your role, because it seems sometimes are your hands, what are the things that hinder you from enforcing the law?
Well, I think that it is very easy to place the two together where you have lawlessness and homelessness, but that's not always true per se.
Okay.
I think a lot of times we get a negative perception based on a smaller portion of that group, and it can lead us to kind of generalize the whole group. And the enforcement of those laws and those things that happen are usually done on case-by-case type basis. So obviously there is a lot more grace given to and more chances given to the unhoused population, especially when they don't have a place to go or a job or something to do. The compassion that's shown by the officers and by outreach teams and by many in the city to try and get them into services is just relentless. They're trying every day to get them somewhere.
Right.
So then it becomes, when they move into that lawness phase where they are committing crimes, then we have to deal with it. And I think that our approach has always been to initially start out with the service side, trying to help people. And if the lawlessness continues, then we start addressing those in kind of a progressive fashion where you start out with like a ticket to a court, and then it eventually gets into booking them into jail. With that,
but with that being said, what I'm hearing, there's really no one being booked into jail.
There is.
Oh, there is.
There is, and there are some potentially very positive changes coming.
Okay.
That I can't fully talk about now because those are going to be part of the legislative process, and hopefully that'll move in the right direction.
Well, I was hoping to hear some good news from you today because I've heard rumors of it, and I was hoping I'd hear we're going to be able to do da-da-da-da, but you have hope.
So
do I hear you have hope?
I always have hope, Phil.
Okay.
You know that. You've known me for a long time, but I've always had hope. But the thing is I can say that with what's being proposed in an ordinance to help address some of the quality of life crimes is very positive, and it will give us the ability to not only give people citations and hold them accountable, but also book them into jail if needed. It takes away a lot of the obstacles for warnings and for services and some of that, and allows the officers more discretion, and that's really where it needs to be because every case is different. I think that with what is being proposed and what we're looking at, it's going to be a huge step. I can tell you this news because it just launched today, is that our downtown high utilizer program is live. That is where we secured 10 jail beds to target the worst of the worst, kind of the ones that are using the highest number of police services, community services, outreach services, the ones that continue their behavior and are not making a change for the positive or being affected by those services. That is live as of today.
That's that. I know. I've heard it's going to happen for some time. So that's live today.
Yep.
So you've been downtown, walking the streets. You know the characters. You probably know them by name. Is 10 beds enough?
So 10 beds is a great discussion, and I just had this discussion with another community group this morning. I wanted to go with 10 because of a couple different reasons. When we did the core study, and the chief did the core study, we had an area around 2nd and Division, and within a half mile or half block of there, we had 6,200 arrests over four months.
62 arrests.
6,200 arrests.
Oh, 6,200, yes.
100 arrests in 4 months.
6,200.
100 arrests. And out of those 6,200 arrests, 31% of that, so roughly 2,000 arrests, roughly, was done by 26 people.
By 26. But they just continue.
They continued. So
there's a problem.
So if we can get 10 of
How
those
many
high
times
utilizers,
can I get arrested and that happens?
Well, you're on thin ice already, Phil. You know that.
Gee
Yeah.
whiz.
You know that. So we've been watching you for a while.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Those numbers are staggering.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
staggering.
But it goes to the
26 people.
age-old long theory that you only have a small number of people that are doing the crimes. And so back to the 10 beds. We chose 10 because if we were to take 10 of those people off the street, you've now reduced your crime by about 15% within a week or two. But the other part, it has to be manageable and it has to be a successful program. So you can't just say we're going to do 35 beds and then it fizzles out because you lose your motivation and you don't do full 360-degree coverage on the people you're targeting. So with those 10, we're now going to, they already have warrants, they already have probable cause to arrest them. We're going to get them into the jail system. We're going to use that time while they're in jail to not release them, to not just kick them out the door.
Good.
And we're going to have the service side of the city get in there, talk to them, offer them services, see if we can't convince them in that time to choose a rehabilitation facility or a mental health facility or something that will get them back on their feet.
So if they don't choose those, do they stay?
They stay.
Stay.
Yeah.
So, well, the other thing that might do too is it might say to the other 15, or it would be 16, that, you know what, they're starting to get serious in our city.
You took away my thunder there on that. I was going to say that once you get 10, what do you think the other 10 are going to do, or 15?
Yeah.
They're going to want to get out of town. But this is a process where it's not going to be fixed. The first time we arrest somebody doesn't mean they're going to go through this process. Services get involved, and now the light bulb comes on and says, I want help or I need help.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take multiple times. I mean, to beat this addiction and this terrible drug that's on the street. So we're in it for the long haul. We're doing this as a pilot project, but the goal really is to continue the pressure to get them into the jail, not just to hold them there, but to ultimately try to get them sober, try to get them the help they need to get back on the right track.
So I know you well enough to know that you long for a city that's safe. Mm-hmm. You believe in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. You believe in accountability. You believe in consequences. What about the other officers? I would think the morale would be hard if I woke up and I went to work and I'm trying to create a city that's safe and there's no consequences to my behavior, to those that I... How many arrests did you say you did?
6,200.
Oh, wow, 6,200 arrests. Well, honey, I come home tonight. Hey, guess how many people I arrested today? Mm-hmm. And night after night, and guess where they're at? They're back on the street doing what they did the day before.
Yep.
The morale of the officers has got to be hard.
It's extremely frustrating, but I would say that the police career and the police job is a calling. And you're fortunate enough to have the vast majority of police officers in Spokane that feel that calling and feel that sense of a pride and purpose that's bigger than themselves. And they don't do it just for the necessarily the immediate gratification or their immediate results. What they're looking at is the long term. And they're human, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
But you have officers, and I can speak to the downtown officers, where they're invested 100%. They know everybody by name. They check on people in the morning to make sure they wake up. They're getting them food out of their own pocket if needed. You have a group of people that are dedicated to serve, and that really is, it's protect and serve. And you have officers within the department, a vast majority of them that believe in that mission, not just on the surface, but they believe that's their calling. That's what they do.
So today's got to be an exciting day that they realize some things have changed.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to know, are there, in the state of Washington, the laws, are there things that you would just share with us that as an officer would help you do your job better? Are there things that have limited what you're able to do to make our city safe? Because sometimes we can be critical of the job you do or the lawlessness we see, but I know in the past, as we tried to clear the streets, it's like, no, there's this Boise versus Martin case, and we don't know if we can or we can't. But where are your hands tied? And really, in all honesty, what I hear too, what's happening with the judicial side? Because you can arrest people, but if there's no enforcement, what do you see that would be helpful for people to know that would make your job better? Because you don't put on that uniform every day to see our city look like it is. You know, I know your heart.
Yeah, and that's a very tough question, and we'll try to digest it as much as I can. So first, from a legislative level, obviously making the possession of...
Now hold on, I don't want you to lose your job.
Oh, no, I'm not going to lose my job.
Yeah, okay.
I'd have to come work for you and figure something out. So the biggest thing legislatively is the drug issues, and making the possession and or use of drug a misdemeanor really hurts. Just in what you can do through the courts. Courts are bound by rules, the judges are bound by rules. Misdemeanor is treated completely different than a felony. When you get to mental incompetency, a 1077 type case, there is no real solution for that at a misdemeanor level where there is to a degree at a felony level. So those definitely change. As far as the laws in the state of Washington, besides that one and a couple maybe some of the lower level things, the laws are decent. It's holding people in the jail system long enough for them to face those consequences, which is tough. But for years, the jail system has been a catch-all. It has been the only solution we've used. Same with the police department. We've become, over the last couple years now, we're mental health workers, social workers, outreach workers. Sometimes we're doctors and nurses and doing everything else. And we haven't addressed the real problem of some of the mental illness.
Yeah.
So you start looking at, should the people that are deemed mentally ill and mentally incapable of trial who are wandering our streets, should they just go to jail? No, they should have a place where, if we were to change the law, where an officer can involuntarily commit them to somewhere that is a mental health facility that is dedicated to their recovery and mental health, that would be your best option. So you open some of those places, 20, 30, 40 beds. Officers now have the ability, when they see someone who is manic or who is completely a danger to themselves and others, now we take them to that facility. We hold them for a period of, a couple weeks. They get evaluated by a doctor or DCR or somebody who then holds them for a longer term. But you have people who probably should be in some kind of a mental health institution that are on the streets of Spokane. On my way here today, I saw 3 of them that were on the corner in crisis. So what is the solution? There's not a law you're going to put on the books for those people unless they commit a crime, for them just being on the sidewalk yelling at themselves and doing things. So I think we really have to look at what we can control, and that would be the mental health.
Unless we come back and say they may be doing that, but are they a danger to themselves?
Sure.
And the other thing too, I remember sitting right out here one morning talking to someone who works in the mental illness field, and they said, you know what, Phil? Until we get someone off their drugs, we don't know if it's mental illness or drug related.
Combination of both.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have heard over and over and over again from people that we serve, jail was the best thing for me, because I got sober, I started thinking clearly, and I made good decisions. I think today a lot of what I hear is jail's bad, and we've kind of backed off on seeing that as something that's positive in the lives of people. It's not necessarily negative. And I know we're heading in a direction of mental illness and all these social workers and all this. I would just say I would love places that people that are mentally ill could go and be evaluated and restrained and not walk out the next day. And I hope we're heading there. I know there's some work being done behind the scenes. But
well, and we have to be headed there, because truthfully, while jail is impactful and it is positive for a certain segment of the population, it's not for everybody. And it would just be a revolving door. And so you have people who are serving a life sentence, 10 days at a time or 25 days at a time, depending on what it is. So I really am a strong believer in a multifaceted approach. If we're going to use jail, we should have other alternatives for everybody to try to get into some of those services, to get them a real deal eval on their mental health health or their drug use. But you said one of the things that we have to find out a better way is to get them sober. How do we get people sober? And if you use drugs long enough, you're going to be mentally incompetent as well. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
that is, you're frying your brain.
Yeah.
So how do we get them back to where they can start having some rational thought, have a conversation, and then start worrying about their well-being? So,
right. So we had Dr. Marbut. I always say his name wrong, so I was going real slow. He identified in his study, one thing he said, and this is not a shot across the bow, but he said in other cities, I ask, are there things that are hindering you? But yet in other cities, we don't have the problem we have in Spokane. We're number 2 in fentanyl deaths. We have more homeless people on our streets than we're become like Portland and Seattle. And he said in his time here and what he witnessed, he said, our city will watch police drive by incident after incident. In other cities you go, when there's an incident, the police are there, they have a touch and involvement. I sometimes feel like as it becomes so overwhelming with what we have in our city that you do drive by. You know what I mean? Yeah. What's the bright light in the future that there's hope for our city, that we just don't drive by, that we start, someone told me the other day, Coeur d'Alene, there was a homeless person outside the facility. They walked in the store, they did what they did, they came out and there was a policeman right there interacting. And I know where they brought him. They told him they brought him to Spokane. Thank you, Spokane. But my point is, how do we change the culture we have here? And that's what to me is like, I know people are hungry for. They want to see, your mom lives in Coeur d'Alene. You know how beautiful it is.
I think that there is a lot of numbness to it after a while, just like with any profession, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, you get some compassion fatigue. And so as officers are driving around and you don't see those long-term solutions, it absolutely weighs on somebody. I mean, what are you doing this for? Well, we keep doing the same thing. You couple that with a little bit of the lack of consequences and the lawlessness, with a shortage of staffing and resources, and you've developed a perfect recipe to where more people are coming to Spokane just for those services. They're getting shipped here from Coeur d'Alene, from Tri-Cities, from central Idaho, western Montana, all over, because we're the biggest city around. And now we have to deal with that. And so it kind of overloads our systems to a degree. It overloads our police to a degree. It overloads our streets. And so I really think that refocusing on the things that we can win, and that's what I've tried to bring downtown, is every day if we can make a difference and just work on some solutions for today, some solutions that'll get us through the next week, whether it's boarding up a vacant building so we don't have the trash and transient issues, if it's connecting with people where they're at and trying to get them the help that they're asking for. If it's jail, we have to be kind of a master of all trades as a police officer. And I know a lot of times last week I had to deal with 2 calls on my own of trespassing and drug use because my officers were on a domestic violence call that was very involved, where the victim was in the hospital. So now all my people are dealing with that, and we have other businesses that have other issues. So really
overwhelmed.
And downtown is a complex place of multifaceted, long-term issues and problems that have been going on for decades. It's not like this stuff just happened the last 2 years. It just festered the last 2 years and has been kind of magnified with a lot of the press that it's been getting, and the status of the streets and some of the ordinances and some of the things just kind of brought it to the forefront. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were dealing with a lot of the same issues, just on a smaller level.
Yeah, you weren't dealing with fentanyl either.
No, and fentanyl is brand
and
new.
Meth as bad as it was. So those.
But back then it was heroin.
Yeah,
heroin was bad, but not near what fentanyl is. Yeah.
Well, I just know that every time I see one of your fellow officers, and I see you, I want to thank you for what you do, because how you put that uniform on every day and deal with what you deal with, I just admire you so much, because it's got to be hard.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate what you do. And I pray for you, because I know safety's an issue.
Huge issue.
And thank you for what you do. And thank you for the good news and the bright light, because I know behind the scenes, you've really been pushing hard to get 10 beds. It's taken a long time, but to hear that today has got to be a big win for you and your heart to also balance out what we're doing. So,
and I think the biggest thing I can say is for Spokane is to stay optimistic and stay positive.
Good.
There's no one that's going to give up on Spokane. You know, I drive the streets every day. I see the issues we face, but I also see the great things we have. And if you look at how beautiful Riverfront Park is, you look at the buildings downtown, you look at the community and the different restaurants and the small businesses, that's the positive we need to be highlighting, not the unfortunate drug use or homelessness. And so I think that as a community, we have to make some tough decisions and find out what direction we're going.
Yeah.
But I am very optimistic about the next couple months in the future, and I can tell you this: the police department's not going to stop trying.
Yeah.
So we're not going to pack it in. We've got to find a way to keep going. So
good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we've got a special hat for you.
Oh, look at
You
this.
can wear that on the job and send people our way that want help.
Yeah,
There
I
you
send
go,
everybody
Reese.
your way that I can. Yeah.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I am anxious to talk to you. You've been in this battle of homelessness in our city for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a lot of perspective. I don't even know where to begin, but let me tell you something I'm concerned about. One is, and I'll just share to the people that are listening. I know when you're mayor, you get a lot of criticism for what happens and doesn't happen. And I think I have said with a lot of people, when you were mayor, there's a lot of things you wanted to do, you couldn't do because you got to have city council behind you.
Yeah.
And as we see right now, the city council is 5-2 in most votes, and the city council, I've told them many times, they determine what happens in our city, not necessarily the mayor. What were some of your challenges that you faced with homelessness? Looking back, what advice would you say we need to do as a city, and where are we going?
That's a big question.
Yeah, but
Well, Phil, as you know, when I ran in 2019, my my race was a referendum on homelessness.
right,
And that was the #1 priority. Public safety always, fundamental responsibility of government, but homelessness was a big one. When I came into office, we had a global health pandemic that broke out 2.5 months later, so we addressed homelessness in many different ways. During COVID, keeping people off the streets, not spreading a virus.
Yeah.
At that time, the city only had a seasonal homeless shelter that was open just a few months in the winter, nothing beyond that. I also had to deal with the court ruling, Martin v. Boise, that really handcuffed us as far as what we could do. If you wanted to move somebody along, you had to have a shelter bed, a low barrier shelter bed to direct them to. And then we had Camp Hope for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So all of those three things really consumed the majority of my time in office was spent addressing homelessness.
And Camp Hope, just going back to that, you worked hard to get that thing shut down, and the state stopped you. And that, we just talked early on with Marbut that how many people have come here? How many people, came to Spokane because of Camp Hope?
And the promises that the nonprofit that was running that camp gave people. It was an open mat or open door to get tiny homes here.
Yeah.
And Dr. Marbut, who a leading authority on the issue of homelessness, came here and did his survey. And it wasn't that people are coming here for services, even though we are the biggest city between Seattle and Minneapolis, and we do address homelessness regionally for a huge area, many, many states. They come here because of radical compassion.
Right.
And that's excessive freedom of behavior.
Right.
They get to do what they want to do, and there are no consequences, there's no responsibility, there's no accountability. And I love Captain Reese, and I know our officers. I was the biggest advocate for our officers in the mayor's office, and it was tough. And that's when you have a mayor who's telling them to do their job. That's all I'm going to say. They sign up. They're law and order people. It is a calling. They want to do their job, and I feel like in a lot of cities, our officers are not allowed to do their job in enforcement.
Totally. Now, what I want to talk about is what I don't think people are prepared for. You received a lot of criticism And the campaign was shut down the Trent shelter. That held, what, 600-700 people in a crisis situation. We've got cold weather that'll hit us in the next month or later, and it's going to be cold. Tonight, in Spokane, emergency beds, there are 36 available beds. We shut that down. I'm saying to people, if we're going to talk about homelessness, no one is looking on the horizon for this winter. There is nothing available. We started the scattered shelters. Hope House is closed down for women. You've got a few scattered shelters. There are 36 beds now. And what is going to happen this winter? What I find interesting, the very things that we were critical of, the way there was at least a response in place, what does the future look like this winter moving forward? And I'm anxious to see what is the response, because Nadine, when you were there, if you didn't have a bed, you were criticized. You know what I'm saying? You get blamed. Well, we've shut everything down.
In my one term, 4 years, we added 500 low barrier beds. We had the Way Out shelter, which is now run by Salvation Army.
Right.
We opened Cannon for overnight, which had 100 people. We started the young adults shelter. That HOA or Volunteers of America VOA operates, and we opened up Trent. And like you said, at Trent, when it was closed last October, there were 400 individuals. Now, not everybody likes congregate shelters. I get that. They're not popular. They're not the best environment, but we had resources there for people. Heck, we even had court 2 days a week so people could resolve their criminal history so they could get connected to services. But to close that shelter with 400 people at the end of October, right before winter, I would have been crucified for doing that. Yet I set up and started all of these facilities that now we don't have anymore. So when you say, what are people going to do? What they're doing right now because of fentanyl. They're going to die in the streets.
Totally. And it's
where's the compassion?
I'm with you, and I just don't again, we've put them on the street. That's where they're at. We see that, and again, as people went out today, they saw the drug usage, what's taking place in our city, and it's I don't know what the future looks like as we move forward. I am encouraged with one thing, that maybe beyond our city, from a national level, there's beginning to be pressure to change. I only wish you would have been there in administration when that came, because if the local administration buys into that philosophy, we could change our city. But the force is going to come from the outside in, and they're going to say, no more money for Housing First, no more money for cities that are going to feed addiction and allow people on the streets.
And the facilities that we need, Phil, cost a lot of money. When you talk about stabilization facilities where people are brought in off the street, they can detox in a much more humane way than in jail. Although a lot of people will tell you that's what set them straight, obviously, but it's awful to detox in jail, and then to stabilize them before they are put in some kind of a transitional housing. These individuals can't go from addiction on the street to a roof over their head, as you know.
Oh, we know.
That is a roadmap to failure, as we've seen with Housing First. They have to be stabilized. Their issues that have kept them housed have to be addressed. They have to relearn things all over again. What we see at the Rid Path, the people who are on Section 8 vouchers off the street and put into subsidized housing paid for by the government, they don't even have the life skills to know how to live in an apartment. I've toured the Rid Path. I've talked to maintenance. Those units are trash because people do not know how to live. They have lived, and this sounds so harsh, they've lived like an animal on the street in the wilderness. And they have got to be taught how to be human again. But we have to show our humanity in the way we treat them, and that's what you do at UGM. And I'm so thankful, because all of these conversations go back to UGM, because UGM does it right, and they've been doing it right for a really long time in our community. And you have the best metrics and success stories, which I'm sure people are hearing today, on how to do it.
Well, I'm just curious how you respond, because there's certain things that get my energy, and I was on a interview the other day, and one of the other people was saying, well, the problem in Spokane and the homelessness we see on our streets is lack of housing. So the individual that you just talked about at the Rid Path, I'll guarantee you he had housing at one, or she had housing, and they were kicked out.
And they lost it because of all these issues.
Yeah. So why is it, I know we need to always build more housing, I'm not against it, but to look at the homeless problem and label it with lack of housing, to me is a real miss.
It is.
Because like you said, we give them the housing, they're not able to even function in it other than continue their abuse of the drug or addiction they're in. So, that to me has been one of the things I wish we could just break through this simple answer of always saying the problem is we don't have enough housing.
I think there are some people that just want them off the streets, and if you can put them behind a door, then you don't have to see it. Or there's also people who say, well, you don't want to see it on the street. No, we don't.
No.
I love what Salvation Army does. When we were cleaning up the viaducts and moving people along, actually cleaning the filth that they were living in, the activists would come and protest and call them sweeps. But Salvation Army calls them rescues because we are rescuing them from their squalor conditions. And it's just a mindset. It's just a different ideology. No, I don't want to see somebody on the street. I don't want to see somebody suffering. I don't want to see somebody having a mental issue on the street, walking into traffic. When we put the fences up at the Brown Street Viaduct by House of Charity, we did so.
You cleaned it up?
There were so many people camping under that viaduct and getting high every day. They were falling into traffic, getting hit by cars and killed. Some of them were dragged for blocks. And I said, we have to stop this. So we put the fences up so you can still walk, but you couldn't camp. And we had some of our elected officials protesting that. And then, of course, when I left office, the fences came down. Catholic Charities actually told me before I left office, we don't want those fences removed. Those fences have kept people that get kicked out of House of Charity from hanging out under the viaduct. So, it's just a different ideology. I think we all want the same thing, but boy, are we looking at, there's just too many bad ideas on how to get there.
What did you feel like, all this money pouring in a sense, your hands are kind of tied to what you do with that and where it goes. And I think some people don't understand that. They complain, but there's so much money pouring in. But that, again, is changing. Because
it will
now
if the federal government's holding back money because of the way we do business in the city and in the state of Washington.
And that's really going to be interesting how that impacts our city. Well, I just know this, I really value what you tried to do, and you can only do so much, like I said, if you don't have the council behind you. And again, I think it's a matter of educating, but thank you for your years of service and what you did, because you did some great things. Some of those are gone now, and I think we're going to, again, this winter, see the consequences. But again, thank you for your service, love for our city, and what you've done.
Thank you so much, Phil. And thank you for everything UGM has done over the years, is doing today, and will do moving forward. If we didn't have you, I mean, the people that you're training, getting off of drugs, into jobs, you're giving them a new start, and in such a positive way, you're changing their life forever. Because you're changing their heart and their soul.
That's right. And it's a joy to see that. It's a joy to be a part of it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So we met, how long ago was it?
It's got to have been early this last year, so maybe several months, January or something.
You invited me up to Colville. And Colville, I began to get calls from Colville because things were happening in Colville. You were... What was happening in Colville?
Well, we saw a huge influx of homeless as well in our small town. And I'm assuming it was partly the result of some of these court cases that decided you could not have people move off of public streets and out of public doorways. And so Colville built an encampment, partly to have a place so that people could be moved from the public business and over to a specific place. But we had probably 75 residents of that encampment for a couple of years, and now it's being closed down and cleaned out because of the new rulings. But it really changed.
That was when that Martin, Boise, and you couldn't really, you didn't have a shelter. So they could camp.
I mean, we have warming centers and things like that, but it probably got people asking questions. What kinds of resources does Colville need that will actually help people? It changed the culture of Colville though for a while.
I find it interesting because most of our people that are tuned in know about Colville, but you have all these towns that are similar to Colville in size. And how do they handle homelessness? They have no facilities, no shelters. And then a shelter, Housing First project is being brought to Colville, and so all the phone rings. I hear, Phil, what's going on? What's happening in Spokane? Do we want this in Colville? And what's going to go on? And I think Housing First projects are all run different. And I don't know if the one in Colville will be chronic homeless. You know what I mean? But again, the whole model of Housing First is changing because of the new administration. But somewhere along the line, this whole issue got a hold of you. And what are you doing today?
So I've been a teacher for the last 10 or 12 years. I've homeschooled my kids, but we have a thriving homeschool community up in Stevens County. And so we've always had classes with lots of kids involved. But I decided to stop teaching this last year because my kids are almost ready to be graduated, and it was time for them to be lectured by someone else in a class.
And when she says a thriving homeschool program, you have, the time I visited and shared, how many students are a part of that?
Boy, we had probably 45 teenagers who were coming every couple of weeks to tackle issues. Great economic principles of law, current events, which is why we were discussing poverty and homelessness. And so because I stopped teaching, I happened to see that the Discovery Institute out of Seattle was looking for someone to work on their Fix Homelessness initiative as a research fellow. And so I've stepped into that role, which has been a deep dive, quick education, still in the middle of it.
You jumped into that when?
Mid-August. Yep.
So here we are just 2 months later. What have you learned? Because here you are, an educator, a research person, and my mind, what have you been learning?
So let me take you on a little reflection that I had today. So you know that I live 80 miles north of here.
Yeah.
And I left early this morning and I came down to Spokane to participate in UGM's downtown outreach. And I have an event this evening that I'll go to. So I have all these hours in between just in the city of Spokane. I have, I'll need a change of clothes for later. And it got me thinking about being somewhat displaced, right? I'm not close to my resources. I'm not even really sure, well, where should I use a restroom if I need it?
You're more than welcome over here when you're done.
And this is part of what I was thinking. So I have a warm vehicle. I drove myself up to Hobby Lobby to use the restroom when I felt like it. And I have, all this time. And I just started thinking, here I am. If I couldn't get into Hobby Lobby, I have friends in Spokane who wouldn't mind if I just showed up on their doorstep. Probably friends of theirs. I could show up on those people's doorstep and mention my friend and get in, and I thought, gosh, if I ever got into trouble, if my car broke down, I've got credit cards or debit cards that I could call a tow truck. My husband, my dad, my sons would all show up from anywhere if I needed their help, Suppose they weren't available, there's probably hundreds of people who I'm acquainted with who I could call in a moment of need. And so I was thinking about the folks we were meeting downtown today and just thinking about how much had to be lost from a normal human life to get into that position. And I almost can't imagine losing that much. But I thought, if you introduced addiction to my story, I could see how all of that would be lost in a fairly short amount of time because of what it does to someone's life, and just
that's
how
that's a great
insurmountable.
illustration. And at the same time, too, there are some that would never have the support that you had.
Never would have started there.
Both sides of the equation.
Yes.
If you had it, it can be lost because of addiction.
Yep.
And some never had it.
Some have never even had that chance. So the idea to them of even getting to that place in life. And it got me thinking about what is compassion? What is the issue that we're dealing with? The idea of leaving someone in addiction with no chance, if you can lose everything from that, you're never going to gain any of that when you're still in addiction. And so I thought about the compassion. As a teacher, I love to know what words really mean. And compassion is a Latin word, 2 Latin words, cum and passion, with suffering. So to be compassionate isn't just to feel bad for someone. It's not just to make them comfortable. It is to suffer with them to something better, to bring them out of something. And so, there were lots of times when my kids were little, they'd get a splinter, and it'd be quite painful, And if we didn't require them to allow us to remove that splinter, they would not have allowed it, because they're not going to choose the discomfort, the pain of that moment. Even if you told them a week from now, your foot is going to be festering, you're going to lose your foot, right? They would still need us to suffer with them through the pain of healing, through the pain of treatment. And so that's what compassion is. And I don't know if you know Marvin Olasky, his work at World Magazine, and he wrote a book called The Tragedy of American Compassion, where he actually discussed what is effective compassion. What are the components of that? And he put it in ABC form, A through G. A, first, it's affiliation, it's family. They need to be connected to the people who they have some claim on, some care for, who care for them, if they can. Robert Marbut mentioned some people can't, and that's understandable. So the second B is bonding. If they don't have family, they need to bond with other people, and they need to belong. And even that word, belong, is to be for a long time, to be welcomed, to be endured, to be helped for a long period of time, which is messy and it requires a lot of effort. C is categorization. Not everyone comes from the same place. They don't have the same needs. There's a beautiful verse in the book of Thessalonians that talks about helping people in different ways. And it says, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, and help the weak, and be patient with all of them. But they have different root needs. And need different attention, different responses. So to categorize people and understand where they're coming from. D is to be discerning. So not everyone is what they seem. It takes some thought. It takes some careful assessment. E is employment. You guys at UGM, you understand the importance and value of work, the dignity, the blessing of work. We need that. We need to contribute to our own care and to the care of others. That's just a very human thing.
I've come full circle. Let me jump in here. Full circle to realize that I often ask people this question, tell me about the different character of God, and they'll list love, mercy, justice, all those. But no one hardly ever says work. And he worked 6 days, and then he rested. And that is DNA is in us, that there's a sense of fulfillment and dignity that comes from work.
Right.
That's why we put an emphasis on it.
Yes.
And when you see people that are just every day doing nothing, what sense of dignity do they have?
No.
You know
or what
I mean?
Creation can they point to that they've brought forth in any way? Yeah.
So appreciate
employment, freedom, and you had business owners here talking about, they need the freedom to prosper, to work and enjoy the fruit of their work. There's this concept in law called quiet enjoyment, which is the freedom to enjoy what you have earned and what you've created. And when that is taken away or not protected, then there's the kind of robbery that's happening, and we tend to forget those citizens in the looking at the ones who seem to be suffering so acutely. And lastly, we need God. We are spiritual creatures. We are created beings, and we need our Creator. And so that's compassion includes all of those. Compassion is not. So when you look at Housing First, it's almost like a hospice program. Oh, you're suffering, and in fact, this malady is going to kill you if you keep at it, but we're just going to offer you the chance to change and then keep you comfortable while you die. If you choose not to change, that is not compassion. So just trying to understand how those things apply to, UGM is living them out, making them available, but that needs to be done on a wide scale to make a difference.
So with this new job that you have, research. What's that look like? I mean, data. How do you? Where are you going? How are you going about it? I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So.
It's a lot of digging. I'm reading lawsuits and documents and court cases, and you can do public records requests to try to find out some of the things you mentioned today. Where are the hot spots for law enforcement activity? Those kinds of things are usually gleaned out of requesting a public accounting for those things. So it's really all kinds of sources. Robert Marbut mentioned federal spending, so that's looking at budgets and where's the money going. Counts, and he conducted his own count, so that's research to actually get on the ground and find out how many people are here, where did they come from, and then just compiling all of those things.
How much studying have you done on the amount of and I always like to say, our tax dollars that's going to solve this problem of homelessness? I've been doing this 39 years, and I remember speaking and saying, looking up, HUD gives out this many $1 million. Now it's in the billions.
Yes.
It's only escalated.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your studies, where it's at today, but we've spent more money than we've ever spent, and yet the problems, we haven't solved anything.
No.
So at what point, as we heard earlier, Obama was going to end it in 10 years. There's always a plan to end homelessness, and we've spent more money, and yet we have more homelessness.
Right.
So
we create. I love that Union Gospel Mission is privately funded, because that is compassion. Someone has suffered, if you want to say. Work is a form of discomfort, even though we're blessed by it. They have earned that, and then they have chosen to contribute it to this ministry. When you put government in the middle of that process, you disconnect the giver, the worker, from the receiver. And that always causes problems, and it always siphons off some of the value of that. And it creates what some people refer to as the homeless industrial complex, which is all this money in between, all these jobs that are reliant on particular funding streams. So, even if you are part of a program like maybe a Housing First facility that is obviously not helping the people in it, but your job is dependent on keeping that program going, even if you're a compassionate person, you're just going to have this very human tendency to circle the wagons and protect that program. And it's billions and billions and billions. King County just announced an audit report on $1.5 billion of spending that happened in the last couple of years with COVID relief funds. And they're finding vast amounts of fraud and corruption and waste because the money was just quickly moved out with the philosophy of let's get it out to where it's needed. But all along the way, it was just really easy to scoop some of that money off until the worker who's working and actually sweating to earn that money is totally disconnected from any results that are being received. And you end up with agencies that are very protective of their budgets. You end up with this really perverse, we're serving more and more people in this program that's meant to serve homeless people. And so we're growing, and we're actually, it's really backwards.
When it was supposed to end it and not grow, but
but people in it, they don't want to see their job disappear.
Well, that's where the point in time is interesting to me, because that's always been something that they've aggressively recruited more and more people. Let's get those numbers up, because based on the numbers, the more money that flows in. And so, it's fascinating. I often say this, if the whole homeless thing was about how well we did and there was accountability, I feel like the people that support us, our partners in ministry, if we're not doing what we're doing, then they shouldn't give. And I think that's why people support this, because they know lives are being transformed. We're holding people accountable. We're loving them. And I just wish we could do that. And it's interesting with different administrations. I feel like the accountability, someone's finally saying our taxpayer money is our money. How is it working? And I hope some of these shifts, what we're seeing with what's going to be expected in cities, with Housing First, there's a shift in how we help people and love them. But it's a culture shift too.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done it.
And there are, I think Nadine mentioned these underlying ideologies and philosophies, and if you believe that if you don't believe that there's a God who cares about individuals, that changes your perception of what a person is and how you can treat them and their value.
Yeah.
And it changes your idea of what they need. If a person is born with a need for his Redeemer and born into a corrupt world and needing his healing from that, that's very different from someone who's basically good and just needs their needs met so they can blossom into their goodness, and you're going to react very differently and plan very differently. But you mentioned the executive order, President Trump's, at the federal level, there's a very different set of parameters and ideas coming down, and hopefully they will mean good things. So he is taking away billions of dollars of federal funding from Housing First, from jurisdictions that refuse to enforce basic public safety and health laws, that allow open drug use. And harm reduction programs, which are really just paying for someone to continue their addiction. He's allowing for or considering how we can reinstitute good civil commitment laws where someone maybe is in danger from their own, mental illness, or maybe they're a danger to others. So how can we find a way to bring services to them and require that? How can we make it about treatment and recovery? How can we make sure that there's accountability and results in programs? And those things are all really important for every single one of us. I know about myself that if there weren't some painful consequences for certain things in life, I would not make all the same choices, right? It's those painful consequences that might get me up and doing on a day when I feel like being lazy instead, and so those are just human. We need that. And it's not cruel. It's just part of the world we live in. So
in your studies and your research, I feel like sometimes we go backwards. So we talk about addiction and mental illness being the two issues that contribute to what we see. So you're from Colville. Do you know much about Medical Lake?
Not much, no.
Okay. So Medical Lake is a city that has a huge facilities on it where we used to put people that had mental illness. Okay. Now, this is fascinating to me. If you drive out there, there's a brand new cemetery for all of those that have died in service. And it's on the west side of Medical Lake. And then the lake sits there at the end of the lake, and you'll see two old barns sitting there that are falling in. And I was out fishing with my friend who worked in Medical Lake at the jail system and knows more about the history than I did. I said, those barns fascinate me. And you know what he said? Those used to be part of the mental institute, that the people that stayed there also did different types of jobs. And we shut those down in the 70s when a movie came out, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And now here we are all these years later having this discussion. Well, if someone's harmful to themselves, can we detain them? When we used to have a place when we recognized mental illness existed, we had a place to put them where they could thrive. But because of what we saw, a little negative part of that, we shut them down. It's interesting to me in the history of our society and where we're at, and saying not only is addiction but mental illness a problem, the very things that we had in place that were effective, we shut them down. And so I know that it's just fascinating to look at the history. And I often ask, what have we learned? How do we go back and say, this worked? How do we recreate it? Because stability of continuity of doing the same thing day in and day out for mentally ill people, it's the best thing for them. It's a great environment. But anyway, I just share that in your research. It'll be interesting as we're saying, what are solutions? Not only, we know what solutions are for addiction, what we need to do, but for mental illness, I'd love to see some of these places open up again and do what we used to do. But I don't know if that's a pipe dream or a reality. But in your research, it'd be interesting to explore that and say what worked back then, because we're wanting places to help. How can we recreate some of the good that was there.
Well, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because deinstitutionalization was a big part of why we have the crisis we have now.
Yeah.
But you know, we have these sort of slogans. Homelessness is a housing problem. Homelessness is a human problem, and that human problem is also present in the staff of mental hospitals and in everyone who runs an institution. And so there were abuses in some of those places because of the humans in them. And so everybody needs the redemptive love of Jesus Christ. And we do need good institutions, and they could be places of healing and refuge, but it depends on who's in them.
Right.
And so we have, places today that just look wonderful on a brochure, and they're not wonderful places, and they could be. They could be, but that is part of the human problem that also must be addressed.
So let me close with that. I agree 100%. I have said this since day one. We built all this housing first. Great buildings, great apartments. They could be entirely different in how they were run and what we would do with that housing. 600 places to reward people that want recovery, that go and work on their addiction. Could be a whole different environment.
It could. And we can get very confused if we lose that truth in the midst of, well, this is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be. This is what it could be. It needs to be that, but that's a big job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Pleasure to talk with you again, Phil.
Yeah. Pam, welcome to Conversations on the Bench.
Yeah.
Now, I know Pam really well. She's one of our staff that works here at the Mission. What a blessing that she's been. And Pam, when today's World Homeless Day, and when most people think of the Union Gospel Mission, they think of older men and women, and obviously some of the women bring their kids. But, as you know, homelessness is something that we have in our schools. And on the preventative side, we wanted to say, we want to stop people who are unfortunate. They're born into disadvantaged homes. When I say disadvantaged, parents that are alcoholics or drug addicts, and what future do they have? We've began outreach to reach these kids. And I'd love for you just to talk about what you do, what you see happening with kids, and what we're involved in doing. What I should say you're involved in doing.
My background, I'm a school teacher, so have seen just how homelessness affects kids in the classroom, and not having that steady, consistent schedule, even meals, how that affects them just learning in the classroom. And so I love that UGM has even had the thought to be preventative, because that's not something that a lot of other organizations are doing. And so we as a group go into the schools, and we start with an after school club. And so Harvard did a study, and they discovered that the number one thing that affects kids' resilience and them just being successful was to have any caring adult walk alongside them. So youth outreach, our main word is connection. So we just create ways to have connection with kids that is consistent. And so something that's been really cool with UGM is that I know your heart and my heart is that the local church would get involved in that. And so we don't have the manpower to go into every single school.
Right. We'd have to have a lot of staff.
We'd have to have a lot of staff. And so UGM acts as a bridge. So we approach a church that is near an elementary school or middle school, and we just say, hey, will you help? And so UGM provides the curriculum for our after-school program, all the snacks, and the church provides the people. The cool
and you
part
provide
about
training too for the
the cool part about our clubs for after school is they're not faith-based, but we are faith-based people. So, but our curriculum that we use is all about helping kids with their social emotional learning. It's also helping them figure out who they want to be with STEM activities and science things that they get to learn. It's team building. And so we're doing all these things while we're showing up every week throughout the school year and building relationships with kids at the schools. The unique thing that has happened within District 81 is where we're mostly at, is we actually have schools that are calling us and saying, hey, can you help us find a church that will walk alongside our kids and just show up and just be there and read with the kids and do the after school program. And so it's been really cool for me to, as a school teacher, to know that the schools are realizing that they can't do it alone and they want the community's help and they're reaching out to us. And so we did get a call this last school year from a school, and they said, hey, we have this kid, and the other part about UGM that's amazing is we have a camp.
Yeah.
And so, and this is kind of where the story goes. We had a kid that had been to UGM camp, and so our camp is a faith-based camp in Fort Washington where we can take up to 500 kids for free for the summer, and they just get to experience consistency, 3 square meals every day. They get a sleep schedule. And they get to be loved on by caring adults and volunteers. So, and we partner with the churches in that too. And so we had a school that said
Let me stop here too, Pam. One thing that's a little different with our camp program versus our after-school program is the total freedom to integrate the gospel.
Yes.
And in some ways, you still do that in an after-school program, but only if it's initiated by the kids. But at our camp, we have the freedom to initiate.
Yeah.
And the response over the years, I have watched it day in and day out that half of the kids respond to the gospel at every camp, almost across the board for years and years and years. And for many, they've never heard the gospel story. And so anyway, going back to your story about this kid, I just wanted to integrate that.
No, thank you, there's so much that's multi-level, multifaceted. So this kid has been to camp and has made a decision and went back to school, and the school noticed that he was just a different kid.
Yeah.
And so the school called and wanted UGM. They're like, we asked this kid, what was the difference in your life? And he was like, it was camp. And it was church services or worship time, and it was being able to know that I was safe and he could have a regular sleep schedule and have 3 amazing meals every day and snacks and just have all these caring people pour into him. And so the school really wanted UGM to come and do an after school club or somehow bring what he had at camp to the school. And so we went to the school, and I met the young man and just kind of heard his story and said, I will try to find a church that will come alongside you and walk with you. And so we looked for a church that was close and went and had coffee with the pastor and just said, hey, would you be willing to take on this school? And even while I was talking to the pastor, I got an email from the teacher saying, have you found us a church yet to come and just be at the school? And I will say this, more than just financially helping a school, because a lot of churches do that and they show up and they provide school needs, which is amazing.
Drop off all the pencils, all the rulers, all the paper,
but
backpacks,
then stay.
then walk away.
Stay and be a part, because that's really what they need. They need people to walk alongside them. And so they did one of our after school clubs last year and got to be a part of it. And it was just cool. The principal pulled me aside and just said, hey, when we say that this kid is a night and day difference, he's a different kid, and that's because of his time at camp. And so I have tons of stories like that, and we have just seen that that consistency with the kids that you build with over the school year. We then, at the end of the school year, like you're talking about with camp, we get to offer them camp for free and continue that connection. And the camp is faith-based, and it's all faith-based, and it's us just pouring into the kids and showing the love of Jesus to them, and being able to just really teach them about the gospel and what that means. But they don't just get to hear about it, they see it, because they see volunteers caring for them. And they see us interacting with each other and really sharing the gospel and the love of Christ in a way that they don't get anywhere else but at this camp experience. So then we bring them back from camp, and we then have the opportunity, which is so fun right now, to go into the schools and start clubs again, and they are so excited, so excited. So we can take up to 70 kids from an elementary school to camp. Our clubs, they're smaller, they can hold 20 to 25 kids, but we have waiting lists to get into our clubs now.
Wow.
Because the kids are they're excited because they know we're going to be consistent, we're going to be there and show up. And so that's been really cool to see just how excited they are to see us when we show up. And then the teachers even to say, the kids have been talking about, when's Young Club going to happen? When is it getting started? So that's been really fun. And then we are working more on developing our middle school clubs. And so we are in a couple middle schools now, but really trying to develop a curriculum there that helps them create healthy habits in their lives, so that they can have healthy brains, so they can make better choices. And so that's been really fun to be in more middle schools and be able to see what that looks like, and hopefully get our middle schoolers up to the camp during the school year to do some cool things on our challenge course, adventure course, which would be a faith-based type situation, which is cool.
So for those that may not know, our camp is out west of town, on right below Long Lake Dam on the Spokane River. We have 120 acres out there. You know, Pam, I say this all the time, and I ask people, did you go to camp?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to camp too as a kid, and believe it or not, it's been over 60 years, and I can still remember what I did at that camp. And I tell people, we have sponsorships that people send these kids to camp. We have many people that sponsor so that these kids can go. And what I love is they will not forget what happens. But what I also like is, a lot of times you go to a camp, we used to do our camps, and there was really no way to follow up with the kids. But when a church gets engaged with their youth and their counselors, when the kids come back, there's follow-up, because many of them plug into that church. And for them, this is one thing that's stable in their life, because the family is not always that stable. And I love what you said earlier, just to have one adult in their life that's consistent. So I remember a time when we began this whole journey, quite frankly, the schools weren't on board. We couldn't even announce our camps. And now they're saying, not only can you promote it, hey, come in and help us during the year. And so I love the partnership that we have with the different school districts and what's happening, and your leadership, and just how many of those clubs you got going on now?
So we have 10 clubs right now. In Spokane, we have 1 in the Valley, so 11. 2 at middle school and the rest at elementary schools.
Good, yeah.
Yep.
And again, you're looking for churches to adopt, and not just, like you say, show up and give out backpacks, but get involved in the lives. And it's 1 day a week. And so I know that it's we're trying to be on the preventive side. And so anything else you think that you'd like to share that you've experienced in the time that you've done this? And by the way, you've been doing this before you joined our staff. You brought kids out and ran camps for us. You did it through your church. You also were involved in a local school just down the road that you were running programs. All this was what you were involved in before you took on the leadership. And you've watched that whole culture with teachers and a school change just because you showed up faithfully.
I will say, to be in a place over the long haul, so I've been taking camps since 2012, and so you have the potential to meet a kid when they're 3rd grade and walk with them all the way through high school. And so I finally got to kind of see that come to fruition, and had one of our 3rd graders that we took to camp who did club with us. The unique way that my church does camp is that we let kids that were campers that are too old to go to camp come back and work on the work crew. And also do some discipleship, leadership type training classes. And so we've had students that were campers that went through that process that have then come and were on the work crew, and then they've gone on to be cabin leaders. And then just from there have gone on to then actually graduate high school. But then to hear them say, I probably wouldn't have graduated high school if I hadn't had that intervention from camp and from Young Club, that you just consistently showed up. And to hear, I hadn't heard this story, but the principal from that school had said, that kid would just sit in my office. And he would just wasn't really hanging out. He was bullied quite a bit. And just, we didn't really know what was going to happen with him. And then, you guys stepped in, and we just saw him completely change.
Wow.
And he just has a heart for volunteering, has a heart for giving back. And it's been really cool even to hear people in his neighborhood say, yeah, he's the one that takes care of the neighborhood. He walks around, he mows people's lawns. And so it's just been really cool to see like that long-term effect. Just by really showing up. For my church, it was just to show up, because UGM paid for everything. It was amazing. Like the sponsors and the donors, we're a small church, so it was a blessing to be able to just show up and just love kids, because everything else was just covered for us. And so, and life-changing for my church. Our church has such a greater idea of what outreach can look like. And we have kids that are in families that go to our church because we met them through camp and through the school and stuff. So
I've heard several of those stories too, because of what happened in a kid's life. Parents said, something happened, I ought to go check this out. And that's the transforming power of the gospel. And thanks for what you do. And keep it on.
We
and
will.
if anyone's listening out there, contact Pam. We'd love to see more churches or people get engaged in helping our youth, because a consistent adult makes all the difference.
It really does, We have 2 schools right now that need churches.
That need churches. Good.
They can call me.
Hey, you know, this is really exciting for me, because some of the guys I'm going to be talking to later, I've met, and I know them. I don't know you.
Fair
so
enough.
I'm excited to hear your story.
It's a great time to get to know each other.
Yeah, right on, man. So where were you born?
Originally, I was born in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay. And what brought you to Spokane?
I ran into a couple problems around the time of COVID.
Okay.
A loss of a relationship, a separation from a relationship, loss of my job, housing, car. Things just went haywire right around then. And normally, you know, I'm able to kind of bend over and kind of tie my shoes and buckle my shoes and get up off of my own bootstraps, but it was really difficult during COVID. Not only could I not rely on family support at the time, but jobs were kind of few and far between with the social distancing and everything, especially I was working warehouses. And COVID was heavily prevalent in warehouses where we're all pretty, especially when you're in containers and stuff like that, doing receiving and unloading. It just made it really hard to find work after losing my job conveniently right before COVID hit, you know? So I was thinking I could kind of bounce back, and it just didn't happen. God had other plans, to say the least.
So now, I maybe jumped ahead real quick to Spokane, but tell me about your family. How many siblings growing up? What was your home life like?
I'm the oldest of 6 from a two-parent home.
Oldest of 6, okay.
I actually both of my parents graduated UWT. They met at Evangel in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
After I think they both got their associates or their bachelors there, we moved up here because my grandpa was a pastor and principal at Life Center over in Tacoma.
Okay.
And so that's where I grew up, was Tacoma. I went to Curtis Senior High School and University Place.
Okay.
Graduated from there. Did well. Was bad with homework and studying, but smart enough just to pass tests. Great test taker, but not a study habits were never too great.
You were probably interested in other things.
I mean, sports. I was in the band, on the
band. Okay. What did you play?
Saxophone.
Okay.
Alto sax.
Do you still play it?
I mean, I could pick it up and dust it off, but it's been a while.
Oh, you ought to do that. I'd love to hear it. I love the sax.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah. People that can play those, man, that would be exciting. So in this journey, it sounds like your home. You grew up in a Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So was there a point in that your journey of life that some of those things you've been taught, what you learned, you kind of walked away from?
Yeah. I had principles that were kind of embedded in me.
Yeah.
But they were never tested. I never tested them. They had never been tested in my life, you know. They were the principles of my grandfather, my father, my mother, but they weren't my principles.
Right.
You know, it was what I was taught or made to believe, but not anything that I had tested and learned to experience in my own life. It wasn't until I experienced homelessness and COVID that I found myself on the streets. I was too proud for homeless shelters and too scared as well. Because I don't know what I'm gonna do when I go in there. I don't know who I'm gonna meet. I don't know what's going on in there. You know? And so I found myself on the street. I found myself near drugs. I found myself near like set gang affiliations and stuff. Like, if you want, we can take you. And so I started
because of a sense of acceptance.
Well, acceptance, and I mean, there's the family aspect of it that some cultures believe in, but I didn't know much about that. I mean, I was the band geek, JV basketball player that went to church 4 nights a week, you know. I didn't know anything about that, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, very real issues were present in my life. And that's what kind of tested the principles that were taught to me at a young age. So am I going to uphold these principles, or am I going to throw them out the window for the sake of survival? You know, and I had really real choices sometimes, you know. Where am I going to eat? I need money. That woman's wallet is laying on the table right there. She's not looking. If I grab it, I can eat for 2 or 3 days and I'll have food. $40, $60, you know, as opposed to, all right, well, now go I mean, I remember instead of that, I ended up doing like, you know how when you get like work release for jail or something like that, or community service, I remember like just realizing I didn't want to beg for money or just be asking for handouts. So I remember picking up garbage bags and picking stuff up out of the trenches in the street, off the side of the street. And then after that being like, all right, well now let me go sit outside the Dollar Tree and see if I can get some money to get some food, instead of like taking things that weren't mine or any other lawless action that probably wasn't the best. So somehow the principles were upheld in my life, but they were tested. You know, there are plenty of times where it's like, you could throw that out the way, out the street, out the window, and get what you want and what you need, and I'd be in jail. I could have been dead, prison. I could have stressed my family in ways that I never thought possible without thinking about it, being as young as I was in the streets. And so I'm just really glad that God kind of had his hand on me and had the sense to like hold me through a lot of that, you know. It wasn't always easy, but it makes life today a lot better, you know, because I would never have been led to Spokane if I'd have made some of those choices back then.
So how many years did you spend on the street then?
2 years.
2 years.
About 2 years.
And so what was it that happened in your life that one day you said, I'm going to walk through the doors of the Union Gospel Mission and not continue, you know, my addiction? Was it jail? What got your attention that I want something different? Because, you know, we just talked to Dr. Marbut a minute ago. We got the average in Spokane for homelessness is 8 years.
Okay.
8.7. You were 2 years. Why all of a sudden a desire to change? What happened?
God ran me down.
Okay.
I would say like to
the hound of heaven. Huh?
Yeah. I've never heard that before, but I would definitely say so. I exhausted as many options as far as work as I could. It's really hard to hold down a job when you're not eating right, you're not housed right.
Right.
You know, even when you're in a homeless shelter, it's really difficult. Food is offered during certain times during the day. EBT only lasts so long. There's transportation issues, and there's like timing issues, you know.
Yeah.
It makes it really difficult to hold down a 40-hour job. And then we're in Washington, I mean, so the living wage is pretty high, but it's also really expensive getting a room for rent or an apartment or anything like that. And you hear all the obstacles, it gets difficult. But God, between the bridges I burned before as a kid, as a young adult, I would say, and then even during the homelessness, I had no options, you know. And so I'm sitting in a room for rent. I just lost my job, stressed because I didn't have enough really to pay rent. I just lost my car, and I felt God kind of pulling me to the Union Gospel Mission. So I look it up, and I kind of get a scope of the place and stuff like that. I remember I came this way. I ended up stopping in Yakima actually, and I went to their Union Gospel Mission. So when you say,
where were you when you said came this way? Were you on the other side of the state?
Yeah, it was in, at the time I think it was in Frederickson.
Okay.
Spanaway, Frederickson.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the room and just getting a voice like, get out of the area you're in, you need to start over. So I got up, took a Greyhound over to Yakima, and I had meant to come to Spokane, but Yakima's stop was on the way to Spokane. So I got off there, I went to their Union Gospel Mission, and it just wasn't the right fit, you know? So I immediately, I picked up drugs again. I started drinking. I had picked up a little bit of methamphetamines, and that was May of 2024, and that's my last usage. I've been clean since. And I ended up doing some jail time there.
Okay.
Did about 4 months jail time for a fight that I shouldn't have been in while.
So did that help clean you up?
Yeah.
When you look back?
Yeah.
Okay.
God took a lot of weight off me at that time. One of the options as far as, well, actually I made my way out to Medical Lake. It's funny you mentioned that. And I went to Eastern State Hospital for a competency eval.
Okay.
I had opted in to be deemed or have it tested tested whether or not I was competent for court. And so I went to Medical Lake, Eastern State Hospital.
Right.
From there, I called and I think I spoke to one of the staff here about possibly entering the program after, or whatever services you provided after I was released from jail. From there, I went to ABHS, did their 30-day program, and then they started asking about options, and I kind of had to stay in the Spokane area just for the legal stipulations.
Yeah.
And so when there weren't many options, I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to the UGM, and that's how I ended up here.
So when did you come through our doors?
I want to say around Thanksgiving of last year.
So you're on our program.
Mm-hmm.
What phase?
I'm in the third phase.
Wow, good for you. Good for you. And what have you learned so far that's been really helpful?
What
What are the things that stand out?
what I've learned so far, committedness and relationships. I'm realizing that some of the issues I had as a young adult, I had issues of committedness because of the lack of depth in my relationships. There were things that I just wasn't able to understand or grasp. And one of the counselors here, he gave me a book called The Relational Soul, and I read through that, and I'll probably read through it again. My ability to connect with the individuals around me, regardless of age, demographic, gender, anything like that, it was really low. So I had all these shallow connections and like unbuilt or unfinished bridges with individuals that I'd come across, burn, and then I'd be out of options, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm learning to experience people in a healthier format, and I think that's the most important thing I've learned since I've been here.
And the depth of what you're sharing about your personal life and others is increasing the depth of your relationship with guys on the program.
Yeah. I remember telling some of the guys, I was like, I want to come out and talk to you more, but I remember this is literally the post. I was like, you're not gonna like me. You know? I'm a really passionate individual. I want to say I'm a little bit of a go-getter, but among relationships building and stuff like that, committedness, discipline, structure, adherence to a structure. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned, and this is probably the first time I'm really walking in it. My mom told me there's more freedom and structure than there is without it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I never really cared. You know? I'd always kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I thought I was really smart and knew just enough to get by. And now I'm one of the greatest things, like I'm asking for a lot of guidance and I'm looking for wise counsel and stuff, and I don't make too many decisions without asking at least the guys around me, this program staff, and I will have you mad at me because I'm sitting and waiting really patiently, like I'm gonna wait until we come to a consensus about what I should do because you guys know better than me. And I've never been like that before.
Good.
I always just kind of did things my own way, thinking I didn't have to listen, thinking it would never affect me, and here I am at 31.
You're young.
But I am, but I also, I was young at 21 too.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in school.
Yeah.
I was in Kirkland for a psychology degree that I dropped out of, and I was real young then. So the growth, although I am young now at 31, I think I've grown and progressed a lot.
Good.
You know, within the time that I've been here and a little bit before.
You answered a question that I was going to ask. You said my mom. So you're having conversation with your parents again.
Yeah.
That's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it was
restore that.
It's really difficult because when you get into homeless situations, for me, coming out of a two-parent home, they had degrees and stuff like that. You had to be doing drugs if you were homeless.
Yeah.
And we're not going to touch you. We're not going to enable you.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Mom, can you help me with no?
Yeah.
Can you help me with the deposit? Can you help me with, can you co-sign for me or something like that? No, we can't help you.
Yeah.
You know? And Mom, I'm not on drugs. It's been this time. Dad, it's like, I need help with this. No, you're going to have to figure this out yourself.
Yeah.
You know? And now it's getting to the point where I'm building trust by progressing through this program to the point where they're able to I'm able to reconcile with them. You know? And they're more involved in my recovery. You know, I should hopefully get to go back and visit with my family. My nephew's going to be born, and it'll be a great time just to, you know, love on the family, be loved. You know, it's a hard thing thinking that you don't need anybody.
Yeah,
you know? When I was willing to be like that with even family, I knew that I was the problem.
Right.
So,
well, thanks for sharing your story. I love it when you make that choice that you press into your recovery, understand why did I do what I do, and when Christ becomes your own, not your parents. I love to see the growth in your life and your commitment. So phase 3, you've been here over a year then.
Yeah, just about a year, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, keep it on.
Yes, sir.
Exciting.
Keep calm, carry on.
Hey, thanks for sharing. This is a fun one. Michael, Gonzaga 13, who are you today? Smith.
Smith, yeah.
I'm sitting on the bench with Michael Smith, huh?
Yeah.
Michael, let's talk about your story. Where were you born?
I was born in Spokane.
Spokane?
Up at Deaconess, yeah.
Deaconess?
Yeah.
Same hospital I was.
Yeah?
Yeah. So what was your family like? Tell me about your family.
You know, my dad was, he drank when, and then my parents separated.
How old were you?
I know, gosh, I don't have any memory really.
Young then, huh?
Yeah, I didn't really start having any memories till probably like 5 or 6, maybe. But But yeah, I remember. I do have like some. I remember my aunt was just really, she's a Christian. I just remember like that car ride and that conversation, just how she was building her up, just to have the confidence to kind of leave him, and that she could do this, she could raise me, and all these things. And so yeah, that was kind of the story for a while. But then my dad ended up going to treatment, and they got back together when I was in 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
He still returned to drinking, but he wasn't physically violent anymore. So that was a good thing.
Yeah. So on your journey, when did homelessness enter into your life?
Yeah.
And why did it?
Yeah. Well, this isn't my first time here, so.
Well, I know. Yeah, you've been on a journey, but yeah, when did it all start for you?
Yeah.
It's not solved overnight. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my dad, he did end up quitting drinking when he retired, and started going to church a lot. I always had a place to go when he was alive. I'd go through these cycles where I would, I would stay with him for about, I'd stay sober for about 3, maybe 4 months, and then, I would start working, and then I would just, I would just go out and use meth and kind of just destroy everything, and eventually I'd come back. He'd always let me come back, but I didn't really experience homelessness till he passed away. My parents passed away in 2018, 2019.
So you were how old then?
Gosh, that would have been, I would have been 40, 41.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you lose both parents, and then some of that meth use, some of those alcohol things, you end up homeless.
Yeah.
What was that like? Streets of Spokane?
Yeah.
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 What was that like?
That was pretty rough. Well, I did stay with my brother. He still makes the choice to, he gets some state help. He's had a stroke, but, he's still committed to using meth every day. And he's functional. He seems to be able to do that. But I stayed with him for quite a while, till it was time for me to go. And then
you wore out your welcoming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens in that journey, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was pretty tough. I think I lasted maybe 3 or 4 months. I went and applied for the Housing and Essential Needs program through the Goodwill, and I checked myself into the detox, and then they sent me to the Cub House, which was like a 90-day program that they had, which was great while I was there. The staff was really supportive and really cared and loved on you while you were there, and then I that kind of helped me get into a place a little bit quicker through the Housing and Essential Needs program. But I just returned to using. I didn't have that struggle of having to have a place to live, but there was just nothing holding me back, and by the time like 2022 came around, I started tacking on some criminal charges as well.
Yeah.
And eventually I got evicted from there after about 1.5 years, and I ended up violating some probation, and they sent me to the Idaho Correction Facility for 10 months. And that was when I applied for the program to come back here this time. I really needed some help just finishing probation successfully. It's 4 years of time if I don't. And so I really wanted some help, and I just I remember the love that was here. This is my second time through.
What have you been learning about in your recovery process? How's the program helped you? What are you learning?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is there's been I'd say there hasn't been people that cared and tried to show love to me throughout my life, because there has been. And God works through a lot of different people. I guess I'm kind of coming to understand that God is always present, and He's always present everywhere. And His help doesn't necessarily have to be person specific. You know what I mean? And just more of a dependence.
on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he is personally concerned about you, Michael, in that journey. Yeah. So you're in what phase now?
Well, I'm in the transition out phase.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So are you employed or in the process of finding a job?
I'm in the process. I was given a job offer through the Honda Auto Nation, pending a background and drug test. I did the drug test, I think it was Tuesday, and filled out the background information. And, I was honest with them in the interview. They know that I stay here.
Yeah.
And they know what kind of charges I have. I just have to think they're going to move forward. If they would know that it wasn't going to, if they couldn't move, go, right. Yeah. So I have to think that it's going to be okay. But the projected start date on the offer letter was October 16th, I believe.
Okay.
So.
And then housing. Are you going to live in the transitional housing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things for those that are listening. We have apartments with accountability, ongoing accountability, support, the old crisis shelter on East Sprague. Well, we'll pray that you get that job, buddy.
Yeah.
Keep moving ahead, moving forward. Thanks for joining me on the bench and sharing your story.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's good to see you growing and pressing into your recovery and staying with it, not giving up. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
James, welcome to the bench, buddy.
Yeah.
Welcome to the bench. And boy, do I know your story, and have I heard it a few times, but share with those that are listening today your story. You've got a miracle story, so tell them. I always say to our people, tell your story, give God glory. So tell your story.
So I've pretty much been in trouble my whole life. I was raised by, an addict mom. My dad wasn't around. So that's kind of what I became. You
were up north of town.
Colville. Kettle Falls.
Yeah.
Yep. Didn't do well in school.
Yeah.
I made it to about the 8th grade, part of 9th grade, but didn't make it much further than that. Started getting locked up really early. And
so when you don't go to school, you went out and got in trouble.
Yeah.
And so you were in the juvie system.
Yes. Yeah.
In Spokane, did they send you?
A couple times, but
okay.
Okanagan, Omak area.
Okay.
Up there, Ferry County area.
Yeah.
And then as I became an adult, really got into the meth, and was cooking meth, selling it, distributing it, trafficking. So I started doing prison time. So
let's go back. I'm just putting that all together as you share your story. So as a juvie, 8th grade, 9th grade, you drop out of school, you're in the detention, juvenile. Then as you go on, become adult, you're into meth, cooking meth. How many year span are we talking, James?
Well, I was 47 when I came to the mission here.
Okay.
Yeah, for help.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't come for help. I come to eat.
You came to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened? I mean, you liked the food, so you stayed.
Yes. Well, and in order to continue to eat dinner, you have to go to chapel.
Oh, yeah.
And
that thing that people say, why do you have people go to chapel? I mean, just let them eat and go. What happened at chapel?
Well, I was pretty frustrated because I was in there, but they had good food, so I sat through it. And for a moment, there was a guy up on stage. No, he's a good friend of mine now. He was our chaplain at the time, and he was talking about his son being really vulnerable. And I thought for a second, that would have been cool, have a dad. And, and then a couple months later, I came back to eat, and it's middle of December, it's cold, I'm sick. A bunch of stuff had happened up north, that I wanted to get away from. To be honest, prison was sounding pretty good. I was pretty hopeless. And it got kind of weird then. I know now it was the Holy Spirit. Back then I just thought it was weird. What's going on with him? Why am I doing this? But I was sitting there and I looked, and there goes that guy that was on stage a couple months back, and it was Ron. And so I asked him, hey, can we go into the chapel and talk? And I was bawling in 10 minutes on this guy's shoulder, giving my life over to this guy named Jesus.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about this program.
And let's just stop a minute, because I want you to realize how long had it been since you probably cried.
Never. I
Never.
promise you that.
And so your heart was literally broken,
Yeah.
and that was the night you received Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the daytime, actually. I got a picture of the day. Yeah, it's the very first picture in my album. But anyway, and then Ron started telling me about this program, and I was like, man, that sounds too good to be true. I've been to programs before, and they were all court-ordered, and, you know, the difference is no Jesus.
Yeah.
You know? And, but, you know, things were happening. I wasn't sure what it was, but I'm going to trust this guy. And he asked me if I could pass a UA, and I thought I could. I failed miserably.
Yeah.
I failed for all of them. But he made it to where I could go somewhere else and stay and come back here during the day. So I wasn't out there wanting to do drugs. And I found out that I was tired and hungry all the time.
Yeah.
And you can't sleep on the day room floor or you'll get woke up.
Yeah.
But they kept calling out on intercom for volunteers to work in the dining room or in the kitchen. And I'm like hungry, so that's what I did. I came here, you know, for a week, just hung out and did volunteer work until I was able to pass the test and got in the program.
Yeah. And that, when was that? When did you start the program?
2018. I've been clean for December in 7 years. So
7 years.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yep.
And you went through the program.
Yep.
Got a job.
Yep.
Where you worked, the first job was where?
Well, I became an ETO right after the program at the Motors.
That's ETO, for those that are listening, is employment training opportunity. And you went out to the Motors.
Yep.
And then you, what was the next job?
I came back to the RA.
Yeah, and the RA, for those that are listening, is the staff that work with the men that come through the doors.
Yeah. And I was managing at the apartments too.
And managing the apartments,
Yep.
yeah. And then you left for a brief time, and now you're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
I came as an RA and then went back to the Motors.
Yeah.
And now I get to drive that cool truck.
Yeah. Tell them what you. Yeah. Tell them
I
what
get
you
to
do.
drive the cool tow truck and tell my story, you know, 4 or 5 times a day, and it's pretty
Pick
amazing.
up donations.
Pick up donations. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, here we've been sitting here talking, and people, to just rewind what you've shared. 40 some. So how many years of juvenile, adult, in addiction, in jail? How many years? It would be almost 30.
I don't ever remember not doing some kind of drugs. So
yeah,
40 years anyway.
40, yeah, all that, and then here you are, the last 7 years, sober, clean, giving back to the community, helping those that come through our doors.
Right.
Now going out, sharing your story of how God's transformed you, and you're a contributing member of society.
Yes.
And you're making a difference.
Yep.
And that's what I love. That's why we do what we do. And James is just, you're a blessing to me.
Yeah, you're a blessing.
To see how your life
is.
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the bench, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah. Gavin, I've been having some incredible conversations today, and I'm excited to have you here.
I just listened to part of one of those conversations.
Yeah.
I already feel lifted up.
Yeah. And it started out with Dr. Marbut.
Yep.
And he reviewed the survey he did.
Right.
And shared that. Now, I want you, just because there may be some people that are watching that don't know your history, let's just start and go back. You've been here in the city of Spokane for how many years?
Well, I grew up here.
Yeah, so did I.
Yep.
What school did you go to?
And I remember the old UGM. I went to a couple of grade schools and eventually Gonzaga Prep.
Okay.
And like a lot of people left. And
where'd you go to college?
Went to college, finished up at the University of Washington.
Okay, you a
few
dog
different
guy.
ones. Yeah.
You're a dog then, huh? Yeah, okay. So, and then career-wise, what's your involvement with the city?
Yeah, I, after private practice for quite a few years, but came to the city in 2003. A CPA.
A CPA, okay, I want to get, numbers guy,
Numbers guy.
Money.
Yeah, nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Came in with the first strong mayor, John Powers, back in 2003.
Oh yeah, John, yeah.
Yeah.
Many people may not know this, but I used to meet with John once a week with a prayer group.
Wow.
When he was mayor. I don't know if you even knew that.
I did know that.
For him. Yeah.
I remember it.
Yeah, we used to meet and once a week pray for our city, and
That's a relationship that's missing at City Hall right now.
Well, Well, we'll leave that one alone. But
they come and go. But that connection.
You know what? Since John, I've been here 39 years. I've known every mayor. I've spent time with them, and great mayors. I'm not there now, but yeah. But anyway, so you were the city accountant.
Yeah, the CFO from 2003 until 2020.
Okay.
So for 17 years.
17 years,
Yeah, and we went through some rough times. I mean, we had a near junk status bond rating early on.
I remember that.
Got it up to AA. You know, we kind of were on a roll through about 2020.
Yeah.
And then some things have changed since then.
Yeah. Now, I didn't really get to know you until, I'm trying to think, some of our meetings that we had, and all of a sudden you're thrust into this role of how do we deal with the problem of homelessness in our city?
Right.
Because you and I have lived here all of our lives, most of our lives, and we've seen the change.
Ugh.
Spokane is not what Spokane used to be.
No, it's not.
And that's why I know you step forward to say, what can I do? So I want to just stop and say, not everyone does that. You have, and you've invested a lot of time.
Thank you.
And in fact, you have done something that I respect and admire so much. We were challenged, when I say we, everyone in the city, to get up every morning at what time?
5 a.m.
5 a.m., walk through our city. And how many days did you do that?
We did that for 100 days straight.
100 days.
Starting last February, and did that for 100 days. And really,
tell us what you experienced. I mean, you walked the streets at 5 in the morning, so you saw what homelessness firsthand, what was happening.
Right.
So tell me, what did you experience? What did you learn and see from that experience? 100 days.
Right. And you think you know it, and I bet a lot of us do, just that don't work in it day to day, that you're just driving through downtown, or you visualize, you see things on the streets. And at that time of the day, and starting in February, so it's really dark at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
We always left promptly from City Hall.
Did you have the headlights on?
No, we never did.
You just had enough light from the street lights?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And we were trying to be just kind of quiet about it, trying to say good morning to people and meet people where they were, but really just have a firsthand experience of it. And it was a little bit of a metaphor, too, because we were challenging City Hall. I mean, of course, we see things through the lens of our backgrounds.
Right.
So I knew how City Hall works. And if you could get the leadership at City Hall out at 5 a.m., and that was initially a challenge, and kind of challenge them to do that every day until this on-street homelessness. And of course, there's so many layers, but just looking at that and saying, committing to be out there at 5 a.m. every day until you can really pretty much have that mile-long walk without seeing somebody on the streets or sidewalks dying, literally dying before your eyes. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but ultimately the political leadership didn't take that up. 5 a.m. is pretty early.
And by the way, I just want to commend you because you did it for that purpose. And a lot of people would say, well, we've done it 30 days, we're going to stop.
Yeah.
You did it 100.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we just kept learning, though. I mean, it became that experience you're talking about, Phil. And, a lot of it morphed into experiences like coming here with Dr. Marbut and having dinner. And you just keep seeing more and more of the humanity at play. It's not just a political problem. It's not just a problem downtown. It's like the conversation you were just having with James. For me, I've got a fair amount of addiction in my own family. Mm-hmm. So my focus on this didn't come out of nowhere. I've got a number of kids and other, folks in my family. So I was very much drawn to it and drawn to what you're doing, because when you hear conversations like you just had, that's a lot different than what I saw at 5 a.m. in downtown Spokane. Yeah. I mean, kind of the polar opposite. Yeah.
In those 100 days, did you see change, or just, if anything else, more and more of the problem?
Yeah, it just got progressively worse. I mean, incrementally. And, one day you would think, wow, this looks a little better than yesterday. But then the next day, it would be worse.
Yeah.
And I think there's this sense from some people. I mean, I read a headline in Seattle that said folks in Seattle are okay seeing people dying on the streets as long as their civil rights are intact. And, you know, and it almost felt like that, but when you get up close, you realize these folks have no agency.
Yeah.
Especially with opioids, synthetic opioids. And you realized, Phil, I think the only people, as a parent too, the only people I've met that 100% of the time, not like 98%, but 100% of the time say, you need to intervene here. You need to have strict accountability. The only group of people that's 100% are the parents of addicts.
Yes.
They never, I've never met one that doesn't say, oh,
leave them alone. Let them have their rights.
Right. Let them,
they'll make good decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
They can't make good decisions in those situations.
No.
So, yeah, we saw, sadly, I think, a lot of neglect out there.
Why is it that this thing of everyone's personal rights trumps compassion, you know, and literally people are killing themselves? And we're calling it compassion because we give them freedom to make their choice, and they're incapable with their addiction. I mean, I don't get it. And
you've been that voice for so long.
In our city, we've got the #2 in the nation with, you know, fentanyl deaths, and we're not a compassionate city. What we're compassionate doing is letting them die.
Yeah.
You know, and giving them, enabling them so they do die, and thinking, well, we're compassionate, but it's not.
No, and it just keeps getting worse without that accountability. And there's this shift. We saw it with Dr. Marbut.
Yeah.
We had the 4-term mayor, Democrat, from Boise, and he was saying, absolutely, without enforcement, you can't begin the process of healing. Whether it's the individual on the street, whether it's the city, you're not going to ever move forward without the enforcement. And the enforcement was the pathway towards getting people into the help they needed.
Right.
Which I think people don't understand that. They think, there's an interaction, we're going to whisk them off to jail. And as the CFO of the city, I mean, setting aside the human element or the medical element or anything else, the addiction element, that's the most expensive interaction you're ever going to have. You know, running them through the whole system and landing them in jail somehow. I mean, what you want to do is divert them and use that as leverage to get them into a place where they begin to recover, like here.
Yeah.
You know,
we just learned from Captain Reese that they opened up 10 beds in the jail. They haven't been putting them in, and they're going to go after the ones that are continuing to refuse help and do what they do. Now, Gavin, I've read your emails, I've read your blogs, and I would really encourage those that are listening. You have a perspective. I really think, and I may be wrong in this journey you've been on has really changed your way of thinking some too, of helping, because you have been so involved and you're seeing it firsthand, and you're realizing what we've been doing doesn't work.
Right.
And the amount of money we're pouring more and more, it's not helping. What are the things that have really connected with you that you see, if you could say, this is what I would do from what I've learned, what would you tell me you would do that we haven't done as a city? Because, you've helped bring mayors from other cities, you know, all these people you've brought to educate. What is it that you would say, this is what I would do?
What we've heard, and we've tried to reach out to Democrat mayors because this is a liberal city.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways we don't want to preach to the choir so much as reach out to the people who think, like you were saying, that leaving them alone on the streets is somehow an act of compassion.
Right.
So Anise Parker, 3-term mayor in Houston, Democrat. Again, the mayor from Boise, 4-term, Dave Beater, Democrat.
Yeah.
And they echo what we hear from a lot of Republican mayors too already, that you've got to start with enforcement. It has to start there. And if you don't do that, then you never, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 people living on the streets and sidewalks. So of course we have a larger homelessness issue, we have a larger addiction issue.
Well, we learned from that study, and to reemphasize, our chronic homeless rate is 8.7 years. No other city has that. It's off the charts.
It's off the charts.
Yeah.
How long they're spending on the streets.
You're saying 600 people.
Yeah, at least.
At least, yeah.
And then the city, of course, is pausing and saying, wow, we don't have resources for 600 people.
No.
But what Dave Beater says, and Denise Parker from Houston say, is that once you begin the process of healing and saying, no, you can't do that. And as Dave Beater said he said, well, people think I'm outlawing homelessness. And he says, I'm not outlawing homelessness. I'm outlawing the appropriation of public property for private use.
Right.
But I'm also saying yes to getting people into the help they need. You can't be here. There's a hard no there, but a yes towards pushing them into the help that they need, the leverage to get them to that place. And if you don't start there, you're nowhere. And it reduced, he had a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule. And he said, once you do that, and kind of the foundation for what he said was, services don't attract homelessness people to your community. A lack of enforcement does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So once you enforce, about 1/3 of people, he said, actually found their way back to family and friends, as far as they could tell. And 1/3 got into services, hopefully places like UGM.
Yeah.
And then finally found the ability to get to that place and the resolve. But then 1/3, they left.
Yeah.
But from a city policy standpoint, what that left you, in terms of planning, is suddenly the 600 is 200. And we could handle 200. I mean, even the capacity here at UGM, but you have to have people motivated to get better.
Yeah.
And as long as you ignore them on the streets and the intense addiction of fentanyl, I didn't see anybody with agency laying on the streets making that decision, I have to get better.
Yeah. Do you think, Gavin, that there is potential that, like today we just learned that they opened up 10 beds so that they can deal with those that they continue to talk to that don't want to change, that are doing crime? I mean, the captain shared they had over, 2,000 some arrests, but no consequences. But moving along, what do you think of this group of people that are counties, local cities coming together in an agreement, and I don't know how much you're aware of it, that this is the direction we want to head. We want to tackle this.
Right.
Do you see hope that there might be change?
Well, we were doing that with 8 jurisdictions for a year, meeting Fridays for 2 hours over to Novia. You came over and helped guide us.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a good guidance. Everybody was in line for that, and the city was the only one to stutter step and say, no, we're going to kind of go it alone. And I think that's the other thing we learned is, with all the mental health dollars at the county, the vast majority, except for some opioid settlement dollars at the city, they don't. Except for that, they have very little. They've got the HUD dollars, and they got the CDBG dollars, and some others, but most of it's over at the county. And then you have this tremendous capacity in the faith community, and UGM being the most successful, obviously, example of that. And when you're not connecting those dots from a system standpoint, you can't succeed. Yeah. And we heard that from Denise Parker in Houston. We hear it from Boise. We hear it from every mayor that's tackled this, that you have to connect those systems. And then you start to get that 1 + 1 = 4 or 5. You get the synergies of the collaboration. And certainly that's how I kind of looked at it in terms of what you're talking about with this MOU towards regional collaboration.
Right.
Until you get them collaborating, we don't have the resources because everybody's off doing their own thing.
Thinking they can do it better than the other.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Gavin, I just want you to know I really respect you and appreciate your heart and commitment to see our city be a better city. And I, keep it on. I mean, we got to continue to work at it. And you have poured countless hours into it. And like I said, I've watched you change and where you started and what you see today. And I'm hoping we can just get there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is so discouraging. The 5 a.m. walks were discouraging.
Yeah.
You can see people week to week aging years before your eyes.
Right.
Because you get used to seeing them every day.
Yeah.
But I also remember coming here for dinner And those are the times you walk out lifted up and ready to go and get energetic again. So, I mean, this is a place where miracles appear to happen every day.
Yeah.
And I just walked in and heard this conversation with James. And right away, I feel like, oh, wow, this is worth it.
And I'm excited about the next one I'm going to talk to, because we got another miracle story. Well, we see it all the time. And that's what makes, I think when you love people enough to hold them accountable, and to get engaged in their life, it makes all the difference. You can't throw money at it. You can't just throw a room at it, you know, and say, go live in this room and now get healthy. You know, it's getting engaged in their life and loving them enough to hold them accountable. And what I always say too, over and over again, you don't change behavior by reinforcing bad behavior with rewards.
Right.
There's nothing in our society that works. It only gets worse. And that's what we've done in our city. And we've got to understand what it means to love and help people.
Well, Phil, I think you're a mentor, not just for the city, but individuals. I've got to admit, as a father with kids who are struggling, that accountability is really hard.
Yes.
You're always hoping that the next day it'll just
get better.
Exactly. And you've always been a gentle but consistently firm voice. And I think not only does the city need to hear that, of course, but even parents like me, now a grandfather. But that message happens at every level.
And it's hard. It's what we call tough love, because if it was natural just to do that, we would do it, but it's hard. Exactly. Yeah. Well, look what you brought, the rain. Look at this. And it's not just rain. We're getting a downpour.
We need it.
Yeah. I'm glad you chose this spot to do it, guys. Yeah, this is a great location. Gavin, thanks.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So, Dionne, welcome to the bench.
Phil.
And
Thanks.
I'm excited. Dionne's going to end our time on the bench today, and your story.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have our guests that are tuned in hear your story. So, born and raised where?
I was born in California, but raised here in Spokane.
Yeah.
Yeah, here in Spokane and down south in a little town called Latah.
I got stories about Latah,
Yeah, I'm sure you
because
do.
when I worked for the county, I used to drive truck in that whole out of Valley Forge. So you went to Fairfield. At Liberty.
I did for a year, but I actually finished at Ferris.
Ferris, okay.
Because my family was a huge sports family, and Liberty didn't have the sports that I wanted to play that I was lettering at. So.
What was your sport?
Soccer.
Soccer. Okay.
Yep.
So
my entire life.
You go to Ferris to play soccer.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yep.
And then. How many siblings? What you moved? Did you live in Latah and drive all the way to? You didn't all the way to Ferris?
My mom would bring me. She still worked in Spokane, so she would drive me, and then I stayed with some friends also. For certain things. At that time, when we were in Latah and I was commuting back to Spokane, my parents had just divorced.
Oh, okay.
So
you were a freshman, sophomore?
I was a junior when my parents got divorced, and I spent that year out in Liberty, and came back to Ferris my senior year. I had been there my freshman and sophomore year, and but we grew up. Our family was very sports oriented. Yeah, and that was our thing that that we all did. So it was really important to me, and. My parents had divorced when I was in high school, so my mom worked really hard as a single mom, and
you
I was like a latch.
Staying with your mom.
Yes, yes, I did. I ended up staying with my mom, and a lot of times I just stayed in Spokane with friends. Yeah.
So I want to take a minute and not just skip over that lightly, because sometimes we aren't honest about the impact of parents' divorce on children.
Yeah.
So when you look back, how did that impact you?
It impacted me a lot, because my mom was the enforcer. She was the strict mom, and my dad was the nice guy. And he was out of town all the time. And so it was one of those things, my brother and I would get in a lot of trouble. We'd be in trouble, we'd be grounded. My dad would come home from not being home. And say, no, they're not grounded anymore. Caused a big rift there, but he was the good guy. She was the bad guy. But when they got divorced, they both wanted us, of course.
Right.
But I chose to stay with my mom, even though she was the mean mom, because she took care of us.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I stayed with my dad, I probably wouldn't make it to my soccer practices. You know, he was gone all the time. So
Yeah.
I knew that I needed some kind of grounding to continue to, you know, do the things I wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah, so I stayed with my mom, and it was hard. It wasn't a good divorce. It was very, 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 very rough. And it was scary because I was scared for my mom to be alone, but I was also scared of my mom at the same time. You know, but so, you know, and she wasn't perfect, and my brother and I, we were terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we were hard kids. I mean, we weren't too awful bad, but you know, we were pretty bad, and we were hard on her. You know, when I look back on it, she was just doing the best that she could with what she had, you know, and with what she was raised with. But yeah, it was hard.
And it's not easy being a single parent.
No.
And especially teenagers that know more than their mom.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the journey of life, where did it take you after that?
Well, after that, you know, it was really rough. I got pregnant when I was 18, and there was an incident that happened that my mom kicked me out of the house, and I left. I wanted to leave. It was mutual.
Yeah.
So I went and I stayed with my dad for a while, and I smoked a little bit of pot before that, but I didn't do a whole lot. And I dabbled in some other things when I was in high school. But I was living with my dad when I finally had my son, and then my dad left and married with his then wife again. He had gotten remarried and divorced, and then they got back together, and I was alone with my son. And I would take the bus every day from the bottom of the South Hill to the top of the South Hill, drop my son off at daycare, take the bus all the way to the North Onion.
Oh, okay.
Do it all over again.
Wow.
And I had roommates, but it never worked out, so they were always leaving or I was kicking them out. And then I ended up was going to be homeless. So, and it was funny because back then, it probably would have been 1994.
Okay.
93 or 94. I had a friend that took me to Ann Ogden Hall.
Oh, wow.
And wanted me to stay there, and I said no.
No way.
Because I didn't need that.
Yeah.
I didn't need it.
Yeah.
I could do better than that. So I ended up staying at a halfway house place for women with children for about 5 days. And in the first day that I was there, I called a friend and I said, I need you to take me to Deja Vu. And I started working at Deja Vu.
Wow. From the Onion to Deja Vu.
I was working both jobs for a while because I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want my family to know that I was working at the club.
Yeah.
So, but I could only do that for about 3 months before I had to give it up. And the jig was up, I had to give it up. I couldn't do both. I was making really good money at the Deja Vu, and nobody was helping me, so I really didn't care what anybody thought at that point.
Yeah.
Because I was taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was shortly after that I discovered meth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Helped me work all night and be up all day.
Yeah.
So I could take care of my son. So I ended up using meth for the next 18 years.
18 years.
Yep. I was a functioning user.
Yeah.
Not everybody knew.
Yeah.
It was my drug of choice. I wasn't a big drinker, but
I wonder, you know, as I listen to that story, that's one of those drugs that you can prolong its use a long time. I wonder what it would have looked like if it would have been fentanyl.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Like today.
Yeah. I probably would have died. I'm sure. Yeah. And you know, one thing that kept me using meth for as long as I did too is, for one, I never got in trouble. I never got caught.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I was managing the Deja Vu, and I would take girls down to get them licensed, and I'd see that picture on the wall of the woman that started doing meth.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later.
Yeah.
And I looked nothing like her.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a problem.
Yeah, you were in denial.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have a problem because I was under control. I wasn't homeless. I was taking care of stuff. I had my kids. I'd never been arrested. You know, nobody else really knew, so I was okay.
18 years. Then what happened?
Well, one night I just decided to quit working at the club, and my daughter's dad and I had a really bad breakup. I was with him for 14 years, a long time. And I went and stayed with my mom, and I was working at the club, and I just walked out one night, took a couple years off, and got in a really bad car accident. Broke both my arms and my foot, my finger. Was in a wheelchair for 8 months. And I thought, this is a perfect time to get off drugs.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, this is it. You know, I was out of that wheelchair probably for about 3 weeks and started doing it again. Yes. But I had moved further. I was trying the relocation program too. I had moved further out of town, down to a little town called Tico.
Oh, you moved further south. I know
Yes,
right where that's at.
Yeah. And started working at a bar and met my husband. Yes. And I was trying
Great place to meet your husband.
Yes. Yeah. It actually was, yes. Yeah. Anyway, I was barely doing meth, trying not to, so I started drinking. Drinking really hard. I was drinking Red Bulls and vodka like it was going out of style. I was drinking so much that it put me in the hospital with kidney failure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And it was funny because, I thought it was funny at the time because I'm like, all these years doing drugs and this is what's doing me in.
Yeah.
You know? But that just showed me that I needed just to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I kept, because I didn't have a problem, you know?
Yeah, no.
I wasn't the problem. Everybody else was.
You could just back off a little and you'd be healthy.
I would be fine.
Again.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I ended up getting married to my husband, and we weren't married for a year before my whole life started falling apart because, and you know, of course, everything was his fault.
Yeah.
In my eyes, everything was his fault. My daughter and my son were with me, and then he also had 4 kids. They all lived in the house except for his oldest. My son was in high school. My daughter was just in grade school. She was little. So I decided to send her to live with her dad while I went through this divorce because I was going to leave my husband. And in that time, I had moved back in with my mom for a little while and had taken her car one day and went to a friend's house and got completely wasted and drove myself off a ravine.
Wow.
And ended up in the hospital again. And at this time, I knew I was done. Because that was breaking one of my rules. I had these little rules, and as long as I didn't break them, I didn't have a problem. But I knew I was getting a DUI.
Yeah.
Well, they'd also asked me, have you been drinking? I'm like, yes, I've been drinking. I just came clean with everything. Yes, I've been drinking, you know. And so in the hospital for a day, my husband took care of me and brought me back to health, but I was still ready to leave him. And, but as soon as I got out of the hospital, I started power drinking, and I did for about a whole week, drinking from the minute I woke up until the minute I went to bed. Didn't stop, and I was at the end of myself. That was my end, my bottom. Yeah. So I had called my daughter's grandma, and I told her that I needed help, and did she have any advice for me, because she was in recovery also.
Okay.
So I got into a really nice private rehab, but that my insurance covered, but it was $1,200 copay, and my husband wasn't gonna pay it.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're leaving. He's like, he's like, sorry about your bad luck. You know, you're leaving. So again, my daughter's grandma told me that she had been blessed, so she was gonna bless me, and she paid the $1,200 copay. And so November 16th of 2011, she drove me to Selah, Washington, to the Sundown M Ranch, and that's where my whole recovery started. But 21 days is nothing.
No, yeah.
You know, and
because you've been in a wheelchair for 8 months, and you said, I'm going to quit. You went back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How many times had you done that?
Yeah, exactly. And I knew, and it was then I knew I had a problem. Everything was falling apart, and nothing was working anymore.
Yeah.
And I'd always been strong and pushed through and pursued through everything, but I couldn't. I was just exhausted. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So when I was in rehab, they told me that they wouldn't release anybody unless you were going to a recovery. Place.
Okay.
So they told me that the best place on this side of the mountains, on the west side or the east side of Spokane, was Anna Ogden Hall for women.
Wow.
They said, but it's Christian.
Yeah.
And they knew I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because my husband at that time, he had come to some counseling up in the rehab with me, and he had even said, you know, I've seen a lot of people in his line of work fail because they just go to rehab.
Right.
21 days spin dry, and they have no recovery.
Right.
So he says, you know, recovery is the best thing. And I'm like, yes, I agree. So we had this great idea that we were gonna go to Anna Ogden Hall, see what it was about. First, I had to go to the shelter.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was a shelter.
Yeah.
So
that was when it was on East Sprague,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I get there, and Jackie answers the door. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and I was scared they wouldn't let me in because I wasn't homeless. And she said, "Are you in crisis?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm in crisis." And she says, "Well, this is for you." So I stayed there for 5 weeks before I could get into program. That was December, the beginning of December, and then in the middle of January, I finally got into Anna Ogden Hall. But before then, my husband and I did an interview, and they said, "Well, this is an 18-month program."
Yeah.
And when we left the interview, we're both like, "Well, I'll just stay 4 months.
Yeah.
I'll just stay 4 months, and that'll be plenty of time under my belt, and we'll be good."
Yeah.
And I ended up
And I'll tell them I'll come all 18, but I'll only stay 4.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I wonder how many other people have done that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I stayed 21 months.
Yeah.
I was 21 months total.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look back, what did that program and that ongoing recovery do for you? What happened? I mean, you said this is a Christian organization. What happened spiritually in your life?
Well, at that time, I didn't care what kind of program it was. I just wanted somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. I was just a complete, just empty shell, and I just wanted to be told what to do so I could just figure out which way to go, because I had no idea how to get through even a day of being sober and not lying and not manipulating and not functioning as a normal person. I had no idea how to do that. So when I went, the first thing that I experienced was how nice everybody was.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for about 2 weeks. I'm like, how is this all for free? I really thought that there was some kind of underlying thing, but what it did is it showed me that people really did honestly, truly care about what happened with me in my life. They really loved me for who I was. They didn't judge me for what I did, and here I was thinking, I'm not going to tell any of these people anything about me because they would not like me or love me or even think twice about wanting to help me if they knew the things that I had done in my past.
Right.
And none of that was true.
Yeah.
None of that was true. In fact, the more that I was transparent, the more that I shared, the more all the secrets that I gave up, they just loved me more. And that was all. That was the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
They all wore the face of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was how many years ago?
That was, I entered the program January 2012.
2012. Wow.
God willing, I'll have 14 years in November.
Wow. What a difference to look back and think what your life was like, how much destruction, and now 14 years. What are you doing today?
I work for you at Union Gospel Mission Motors.
Yeah, and you have been unbelievable. Dionne oversees all the finances, the licensing. I always joke with our staff that she keeps me out of prison because if we do it wrong, I go.
Yeah.
But you run that place. You are a gift.
Yeah.
Jim's told me that. You are a blessing. But to me, it's more than just the motors to see what God has done in your life.
For sure.
And 14 years of sobriety and all because of people in this community support this place and provided an opportunity. Thank you. I'm glad that Recovery Center in Sela, you said it was?
Yeah.
Knew enough to say you need to go on, not just 20-some days.
Yeah.
And look what God did.
Yeah. I mean, and even, me and James were just talking about this, that, both of us working for the mission, and there are some days that we just want to rip our hair out and just throw our arms up, but you know what? But Jesus is here, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And that's, that's what saved my life. I mean, that's how I met him, through the mission, and I've seen and I work with quite a few people.
Yeah.
I mean,
been through our program.
Yes. And 3 of us are in management over there at the Motors.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, totally changed our lives.
Yeah. So thanks, and what a great way to close our time on the bench with a story of another transformed life, which is why we do what we do. And we're here to end homelessness, not keep people homeless. And to see the miracles that we see God do in your life.
And had I continued on my way, I would have ended up homeless. It's just by the grace of God that I wasn't. And that's another thing that I always tell people too, because I share my testimony a lot. I go to churches with your brother, share my testimony a lot, and just tell them, you know, you don't even have to be homeless to come to this program.
Right.
You just have to be in crisis.
Right.
And not be able to know how to, there are people that want to help you get out, and you're not alone, because that's what kept me addicted and pushing through on my own for so long is I thought I was alone.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell anybody what I was going through because I was too shameful.
Right. Yeah. Shame keeps people in their
Guilt.
addiction. Guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be set free from all
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes.
What
Thank
a
you.
great way to end, folks, our time on the bench. Thanks for joining us.